What's going on, guys? Bengal again here, coming at you with my annual draft grades for the 2022 NFL Draft. This is one of many draft videos both already on the channel and that will be uploaded on the channel in the next coming days and weeks, including but not limited to the best pick from every team, the worst pick from every team, which is always a fun one because that's an absolute crapshoot. We have a way too early 2023 mock draft and reacting to my way too early 2022 mock draft. So a lot of fun things to come. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're not subscribed already, scroll down, make sure it's clicked. And I will say I'm quite bullish. I think a lot of these drafts went really, really well for teams, and I'm not really going to be handing out horrible grades like was the case for some teams last year. I think most teams did a pretty good job, and that's because of the sheer depth of this draft class. Yes, it may have lacked top-tier talent in terms of blue-chip prospects. What it didn't lack, in my opinion, was a ton of value way down the board. And that's because of the extra COVID year. You had guys with basically a super senior season in some cases, and guys that could go back to try and better their stock. So we had a draft class that's, in terms of depth, about twice as good as usual. So I think teams did a really, really good job in general. And I think teams could find future starters way down the board. And yeah, they're not going to start right away. But at some point during the rookie contract, I think a lot of these guys have a really good chance to end up on a team. However, I think this also unfortunately means that some guys are not going to get chances that they otherwise may have received. But we're going to go ahead and start with the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals, for me, are going to get a B+. They drafted Trey McBride in round 2, Cameron Thomas, Myjai Sanders, Keontae Ingram, Lecitus Smith, Christian Matthew, Jesse Luketa, and Marquise Hayes. I watch hundreds of guys every single year for the NFL Draft. I did not know Christian Matthew out of Valdosta State before he was called on day 3. However, the rest of these players, and especially what they did on their fronts, both offensively and defensively, I was a huge fan of. And we'll include Trey McBride on that as an extension of the line at tight end. He was my number 1 tight end in the draft. I love Cam Thomas coming out of San Diego State. I think Myjai Sanders at pick number 100 was really good value. He probably dropped because of the weight issues at the combine, but he was sick, and you got a pretty good player otherwise. He regained the weight. He's all good to go. Keontae Ingram was unimpressive at Texas, which I saw a lot of him as a Texas fan, but he was actually quite good at USC, and I think pretty good value at pick number 201. I thought Lecitus Smith was going to go significantly earlier. I thought Marquise Hayes was going to go significantly earlier. So, yeah, are these plug-and-play left guards right away for the Cardinals? Yeah, unlikely. But could these guys become starters, at least low-level starters at some point during their rookie deals? I think that's definitely possible and certainly can play in a pinch. And to find that at 215 and 257 in the draft, I think is exceptional value. Jesse Luketa is a hybrid off-ball, on-ball linebacker. I think he's at his best when he's coming off the edge in pass rush downs. And I don't really love him in coverage, but I do like the player. And at 256, I think it was really good value. I thought the Cardinals killed it overall with their picks. However, even though I'm giving this a B+, I think you could slide it down to a B- in that C+ range if you factor in the Hollywood Brown trade. Yes, Hollywood Brown probably is going to be quite a good player for the Cardinals, but it was certainly not worth the first-round pick that they essentially gave up to get him. I think a fourth was added in there as well. So it was just not good value to acquire Hollywood Brown. But that being said, I still think he's going to be quite productive on this Cardinals team that lost Christian Kirk, and A.J. Green's a big question mark. Andy Isabella's been a disappointment. Things are looking up for Rondale Moore, and of course you have DeAndre Hopkins. But their draft was really good overall. I just think they really gave up too much value for Hollywood Brown, but he will probably be quite productive for them. So it's going to seem like a bad take, but I just don't think the value is there, even though he will end up being productive. I'm going to give the Atlanta Falcons an A-. Now, I will say I wasn't super high on the Drake London pick, and that's not to say that I didn't like it. I just didn't love it. I think Drake London's a good player, and I think he's going to be productive for the Falcons. I had it in my worst picks of night 1, but that's just because I wanted to throw a top 10 pick in there. Not trying to walk anything back, just trying to provide some more context. And I think I did a pretty good job of that in that video, but this is a further chance for clarification. I like Drake London, I do. Just didn't find him to be the best receiver on the board, but 2 big weapons for the Atlanta Falcons with the versatile weapon himself and Kyle Pitts. It's going to be tough for opposing teams to cover and match up. My only real concern is usage. I liked Drake London to be a big slot in the NFL, That was my projection for him, and I think Kyle Pitts is already really playing that role in Atlanta. So unless they're going to plan on playing him more as an inline tight end, I'm curious to see if they think Drake London can be an outside guy on 80% of snaps. So that's really my only concern there, but I do like the player. They traded up to get Arnold Ebiketie. I thought that was pretty great. Ebiketie is great value at 38. First round caliber pass rusher. I think the only real problem with him was he's a little bit older, but I don't really care about that as much as NFL teams seem to. I don't think a year makes all that much of a difference at certain positions. Edge is not one of those positions that I really care about. Maybe running back, receiver, it's a little bit more of an issue, corner as well. But at edge, I'm not really concerned that he's 23 or 24. I think that's completely fine. Troy Anderson at number 58. Man, I like the player. I really do. Super high upside. I've talked about him a bunch on this channel over this past year. Great athlete. He was an all Big Sky player at quarterback. He played running back. He was the Big Sky Defensive Player of the Year, moving to linebacker. I mean, it doesn't really get a whole lot more athletic than Troy Anderson in this draft. And what was a really close group of rankings for these linebackers, I don't mind them taking the best athlete in Troy Anderson, especially after losing Foyesade Oluokun. I think Troy Anderson's a pretty damn good replacement. Desmond Ridder at 74, exceptional value. This is one of the best value picks of the draft. Yes, it was a down QB draft, no question about it. But at the same time, you got maybe the best QB in the draft. Maybe. You got to factor in upside with that. Kenny Pickett's a better player right now, but Ritter's got tremendous upside. Malik Willis is great upside too, but Ritter's right in that conversation. And to get him at 74, I thought was exceptional by the Falcons. And he's a Marcus Mariota type player. And to be playing in the same offense as Marcus Mariota, it's going to be an interesting combo to see when Ridder takes over, if he does at any point in year one. D'Angelo Malone out of Western Kentucky, high upside pass rusher, probably a pass rush only type guy, at least right away. I'm not sure what his usage is going to be, but let me tell you, the Falcons needed some pass rush in a big way, and they went out and got it. Ebiketie, D'Angelo Malone. These guys can get after the QB, and even though Malone's a more developmental player, you got him at 82. I thought it was pretty good value. Tyler Algier was one of the best running backs in the draft. North-south running back that just can run down your throat, find the end zone. Like Tyler Algier, I thought they needed more depth at running back anyway. And I think Algier, realistically, will end up competing for a starting spot on this team. Justin Schaefer in the 6th is pretty good value. And I really didn't know a whole lot about John Fitzpatrick. In terms of Georgia tight ends, I was way more focused on Brock Bowers last year, and I looked into it. He wasn't ultra productive or anything. Maybe the Falcons saw something there, but one pick that I wasn't in love with, just because I'm not too familiar with the player, doesn't overshadow the rest of how great this class was, and I think it was a really, really great class. That's why they get a grade in the A's at A-. It's tough to do better than the Ravens did, and for that reason, they get an A+. The Ravens, I thought, drafted exceptionally well. They didn't reach on Kyle Hamilton. I thought he was good value at 14. Yes, big Kyle Hamilton fans are going to say this was an absolute steal, and I think this is the absolute best spot for Kyle Hamilton in the entire draft. Not only going at number 14, you get the pressure off him, that doesn't matter, but he goes to the Ravens, where Kyle Hamilton does not have to play free safety. If you watch my video on Kyle Hamilton where I talked about how he was disappointing to me, it was because I expected this do-it-all, versatile, free safety that can play over the top with the best range of anybody. And that's not what he's going to be doing in Baltimore, thank goodness, because I didn't find that to be a strength of his. I know he can't man up in the slot, but what he can do is play strong safety, in my opinion. I think he's got good range at that position. I think he's going to be able to rotate over and buzz down, make plays near the line of scrimmage. I think he's got pretty good range overall as a tackler. He is very explosive at times, although his trigger can be a little bit delayed at some points. And I still question his run angles. That's a correctable mistake, but oh my goodness, he takes some horrible pursuit angles to the ball. But I do think Kyle Hamilton is quite a good player, especially in this draft class. I think he was a top 20 player in the class, even though I think a lot of you guys have seen him in the top 5, top 10. I wasn't quite that high on him, but I still think he's going to be a good player. And to play strong safety in the Ravens defense is the perfect role for him. It really is a perfect situation. Marcus Williams over the top, Kyle Hamilton as that more traditional box guy. it's an unbelievable fit. And I think Kyle Hamilton's going to end up being really, really good as a result. Tyler Linderbaum at number 25. Great value. Best center in the draft. Maybe the best overall lineman in the draft. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but I think the best overall interior offensive lineman in the class. To get him at 25 is good value. We saw how much Creed Humphrey impacted the Chiefs' offensive line last year. Maybe the best center in the league last year, and that's quite a statement about a rookie, but it's true. And Linderbaum, I think, could look to repeat. Now, he went from a heavy zone run scheme in Iowa to a heavy gap scheme now with the Ravens. I have questions about that transition, but I'm really, really fond of the player, so I don't find it to be an issue. David Ojabo is going to end up being a little bit of a draft and stash here. Ravens needed help off the edge. Ojabo will provide that. Did tear his Achilles at his pro day, but the player I think is phenomenal. Reunites with his Michigan DC for the Ravens. Also, his head coach, Jim Harbaugh's brother, is the head coach of the Ravens, and John Harbaugh. His high school teammate, Odafe Owe, who everyone talked about for horrible production last year, who ended up being maybe the best rookie edge rusher in 2021, was his high school teammate. This is a match made in heaven, and he also has a lot of help in front of him. Yes, the Ravens do need a little bit more help on the D-line, but for right now, they're good, in my opinion. You have Derek Wolfe, you have Calais Campbell, you have Travis Jones in the third round, we'll talk about in a second. You have Justin Madubuike. The Ravens' defensive line looks pretty good, and Ojabo, at least this season, will end up being a rotational pass rusher down the stretch if he plays at all, which I imagine he will when the Ravens inevitably end up making the playoffs. They're quite a good team. They always are. They always draft well. We're always talking about the Ravens as an A+ every single year, and there's good reason that the Ravens are always one of the contending teams in the AFCs because they draft really, really well. They get good players. They stay on their draft board, and they just make their team better with every single pick. Didn't even mention Michael Pierce at nose tackle, by the way, but Travis Jones is a great selection at 76. I thought he could have gone in the second round. I was really, really high on Travis Jones. I thought he was one of the better interior defensive linemen in this class, certainly in that top 5 range. Ravens got him at 76. And yeah, not a lot of interior defensive linemen off the board. I think this is really good value for a player that can rotate in and out right away. Daniel Faalele is a perfect pickup for the Ravens. He's a little bit raw, but he doesn't have to play right away. You have Morgan Moses at right tackle. Faalele is your eventual starting right tackle, I think. He's in that Orlando Brown Jr. mold of being an absolute behemoth. Long arms, big dude, and big dude is actually probably the understatement of the year. He is close to 6'9", 390 pounds. What is he listed at the combine? 6'8", 384. I think he's close to 6'9", 390 pounds. I think at his pro day he was 390. That would be the heaviest player in NFL history. Fun fact about Daniel Faalele. I think he's the perfect fit for the Ravens. They have shown how good a guy like Orlando Brown Jr. can be in this system. Guess what? Faalele has a similar profile. Jalen Armour-Davis is the most Ravens pick of all time. Alabama corner. They go to the Alabama well all day. This was incredibly easy to predict. I predicted it in my 4th round mock draft. I had Jalen Armour-Davis to the Ravens, and he is a high upside player in the 4th round. He's probably going to be a nickel. He has pretty good size for a nickel. He fits the Ravens defense well, and it's not going to change much with Wink moving out because they have the same former Ravens guy coming in from Michigan as the DC back to Baltimore. So I don't think the defense is going to change that much. I think the philosophy is going to be the same. I think a healthy Jalen Armour-Davis could end up being quite good. He had some pretty bad tape at times last year, but I think the player can be quite good. Charlie Kolar is a receiving tight end, and that's it. I don't really view him very much of a good blocker. Jordan Stout was the best punter in the draft. Ariza had a bigger leg. Stout is incredibly accurate, and NFL teams valued him more for that reason. That's why Ariza was the 3rd punter off the board. Isaiah Likely, the Ravens view as more of a receiver. He's another guy who's not really this incredible blocker, not really this incredible traditional tight end, but he is a fun player that you can line up as a big slot and get creative with how you use him. They have 2 guys like that. Kolar in the red zone, Likely in other spots in the field, and then Mark Andrews is still your inline beast. I think the Ravens did well. Tyler Beatty in round 6. This was great. Wasn't too familiar with Demarion Williams, but I did love the Beatty pick at the back end. Ravens get an A+ for a good reason. I'm a little bit higher on the Buffalo Bills draft than others, and I think they have a B+ grade. That would be what I give them, and that's because they they took players that fit for them. And yeah, Terrell Bernard was not the best player on the board when they took him at 89. Understand that. James Cook was not the best running back on the board when they took him at 63. I understand that. However, when you look at the Bills and you look at what they do, they tried to get J.D. McKissick, couldn't get him, went back to Washington. James Cook, best receiving back in the draft. That's the type of player the Bills were looking for. They got the best player for that role at 63. Terrell Bernard, sub-package player. What do the Bills love to do? Run sub-packages out on the field, and a guy like Terrell Bernard is really going to fit in one of those roles and be a good player for them. It's decent value for what they want to do at 89. Kaiir Elam at 23, they had to move up a couple spots to get him. I don't mind it. I think he's a day one starting corner for the Bills who lack talent and depth at that position outside of Tre'Davious White, of course. Khalil Shakir has great ability after the catch. I think this is great value at 148. Matt Araiza, punt god. Big leg at number 180. Just got to become a little bit more accurate, and this is a pretty good pick at this spot. And then they got some special teams impact players down the board. Luke Tenuta is hopefully their swing tackle, which is a phrase you're going to hear me say a lot. But that's his eventual role, if anything. Special teamer as well, probably on like field goal and punt team and stuff like that. Second year in a row, I think the Panthers did quite good, but with an asterisk. I'm giving them an A-, but it's a highly volatile A-. What do I mean by that? There's a lot of boomer busts in this draft. No question about it. Ike Ekwonu at number 6 is great value. Maybe the best tackle in the draft, right up there with Evan Neal. Got him at 6. He shouldn't really have been there. Great value. He's a top 5 player in the draft, I think. And you got him at 6. I think that's a really good value. Matt Corral, you had to move back up to get him at 94. A lot of boom to Matt Corral's game. Big arm, good athlete. There are questions about how he's going to adapt out of an RPO system like he ran at Ole Miss under Lane Kiffin. Big questions there. Questions about how well he can read defenses. So, something to think about. His play style, injury concerns bring him down a little bit as well. But the boom is there in terms of arm and athleticism in the same way that the boom is there for Malik Willis, who we'll talk about later. Brandon Smith, boom or bust. Unbelievable athlete. Height, weight, speed freak. We've seen him out of Penn State. Smith is no different. However, he doesn't play that fast because the game is not processed quite as quickly to him as I believe it is for other linebackers in this class and where he should be. The athleticism is off the charts. Could end up being amazing, but it's not all there yet. That's why he falls to 120. Amari Barno, same type of deal. He is a lean outside linebacker, edge guy. He's incredibly fast. You saw him at the Combine. I think he's the fastest defensive line time in Combine history. Ran in the 4.3s. Unbelievably fast. He was 4.36, I want to say. And he plays that fast at times on tape as well. He's just still kind of learning how to be an edge player. And I don't think he's big enough to be an every down edge player. But learning from Brian Burns, I think, is a pretty good guy to learn from. And if he adds on a little weight and still keeps his crazy athleticism or even something close to that, he could end up being closer to that every down player. But right now, I think his upside is pass rush specialist. Cade Mays, I loved at 199. I think he has potential starter capabilities inside at guard. I know they announced him as a tackle. I think he's probably a guard. And then they took Kalen or Kalon Barnes out of Baylor. This was a really, really exciting player in terms of what he brings in the return game. Maybe not so much a corner. He's really fast. Nearly broke the Combine record. He ran in the low 4.2s, had the fastest Combine 40 time of 2022. He's just not really a great corner, but he is as fast as they come, literally. So fast, but as you could see, they drafted a lot of athletes and not necessarily a lot of good football players right now, but this draft could end up looking unbelievable in a few years, but there is a lot of boomer bust to this class for sure as well. The Chicago Bears get a cautious B, and I like their draft. I actually did. I like their draft overall. My biggest concern is I don't think you helped your young quarterback enough, and I think that had to be the priority in this draft. Yes, I understand Ryan Poles taking over, new regime in Chicago, kind of had to build up the team a little bit more. Their secondary was looking pretty bleak. Like, not good. And now you have a starting corner and a starting safety in Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker. I think they're great players. I really do. I think Brisker was a top 5 safety in the class. I think Kyler Gordon was up there as a top 5 corner in the draft, or very close to it, maybe top 6 at the worst. And they got him at 39 and 48. I think that's good value. However, with Justin Fields being the number 11 overall pick with high upside at quarterback, he would have been the easy number 1 overall pick this year, and it's not even close. Would have been the easy number 1 overall pick. Here's the thing. Do you want him to fail? Because the offensive line's not good. It's not, especially at guard. And the receiving threats are not particularly good. You have Cole Kmet, you have Darnell Mooney. I struggle to find a lot outside of that. Brought in Byron Pringle, and the fact that that's your big acquisition at the position, that should tell you how little they have at receiver. And your answer was Velus Jones. Listen, Velus Jones is not a bad player. 71, I think, was a little bit too early to snag him. And he does have upside as a deep threat, can fly. He is old. He's going to be 25 as a rookie. He has run after catch potential as well. He's not a bad player. I don't love the fit at 71 for the Bears, but you followed up with Braxton Jones at 168, who I think was pretty good value out of Southern Utah State. Did end up watching him. Big dude. Now, it's funny. I don't know if it's just because he played at Southern Utah State, but when I was watching him on film, he looked like the biggest player in the field by a mile. But then when you see his actual height weight, 6'5", 310 at the combine, it might be the long arms. 35 and 3/8 is ridiculous. So maybe that was it. But this is a really, really big dude, in my opinion. And he plays long, and he's a decent athlete, still developing in a lot of regard, though. But it's good value at 168. As is Dominic Robinson at 174. Really good athlete. Kind of in the same vein as D'Angelo Malone. I think Robinson has more upside as an every down player, but still probably is not there yet. Will be a pass rush specialist, in my opinion, for probably the first couple of years. This is not your Khalil Mack replacement, at least not right out of the gate, in my opinion, but he does have great upside. You took Zachary Thomas, not to be confused with Zach Tom, who the Packers grabbed, we'll talk about later. Tackle/guard out of San Diego State. Probably going to play him at guard based on who is on the team already. I think Larry Borum can hang a tackle. Zach Thomas going to move inside to guard. I like that. And then just got some role players down through the rest of the draft. Trenton Gill could compete to make the roster as a punter. But I like the draft class. I don't think it was bad. I think they got some good players. I just worry about how much they helped Justin Fields, who I think all well and good and plain and simple, I think the future of the organization is riding on Justin Fields to be successful right now. Poles is not drafting as such, which I find to be both, I'll say interesting. I think you want to get best player available, you want to build up the roster, but it also seems like he's bringing in a backup plan in case Justin Fields doesn't work out because he's focusing on the rest of the team. But yeah, it could be quite a rough season 2 for Justin Fields with still extremely minimal weapons and a bad offensive line. It's not a good situation for him, in my opinion. Hopefully that offensive line can produce some unlikely stars, we'll say, in terms of the caliber of player. But it's not looking great. But I'm hoping for Justin Fields' sake that some of these guys come along faster than we expect, and Velus Jones plays a bigger role than I expect, other than maybe deep threat, good run after the catch guy with scheme touches, and return man. The Cincinnati Bengals, my favorite team. Yeah, we'll ignore that I'm a Giants fan, go with the meme for a minute. I think they get a B+. I think the Bengals did pretty well, and I think it's not a draft class that looks super exciting on paper, but when you figure the actual role and fit of some of these guys, I think you can become a little bit more excited about it. Dax Hill at 31, I think is exceptional value. I thought he was a top 20 player comfortably in this class. Top 15 is where I had him. I think he's really, really good. And if you factor in his ability to potentially even play boundary corner, this is even magnified with how awesome this could be. I think he's definitely a day one starting nickel. I think he's that talented. I think he could be a day one starting safety, but with Jesse Bates there right now, you probably won't have to do that. I think he's going to be an interesting role player for the Bengals right away because you have Mike Hilton in the slot, who's very good there, and Jesse Bates over the top. I don't know exactly what their plan is, but I love the player, and I think he has high upside at a lot of different positions. Cam Taylor-Britt kind of the same deal. And, well, okay, not kind of the same deal in some ways. Let me explain. I think he has potential to start at nickel. I think he can play boundary corner as well, and I think that's going to be the role for him, which leads me to believe that I don't think the Bengals are going to keep Jesse Bates. That's a prediction, but I don't think they're going to be able to hold on to him, and I think they know that. And Dax Hill is their backup plan for Jesse Bates at 31, and Dax Hill is really good, as I talked about. So Cam Taylor-Britt, good player as well, probably going to end up starting on the outside. Eli Apple not going to be retained by the team after next year. Dax Hill going to end up starting a free safety. That is what I think the future of this Bengals team looks like. Zachary Carter, people really didn't like at 95. I don't mind it because he has flexibility at a bunch of different positions on the defensive line. I think it's good value at 95. Cordell Volson has the potential to start at both tackle and guard for the Bengals at some point in a pinch if somebody goes down. That's good versatility to have on the offensive line that you've really done well to rework in free agency. Tyson Anderson at 166 is not bad value at all. And then Jeffrey Gunter, I think, is excellent value at 252. He's going to come in and compete for edge rush snaps. He's a big dude as well. When you look at Jeffrey Gunter, I was surprised he didn't go a lot earlier. I thought he had prototypical size and athleticism to play the edge, and his tape's not bad either. So I think right away he can rotate in, and to get a player like his caliber in the 7th round, I think he could have gone in round 3 or round 4, and you wouldn't be complaining. And you got him in round 7, pick 31. So I might have been a little bit higher on him than others, but I think this is a really good player and a really good pick for Cincinnati. Or the Cleveland Browns. This is another one where on the outside looking in, I don't think this is going to look like as great of a class as I actually think it was, especially when you factor in that they traded for a quarterback. And yeah, that quarterback is getting paid more than Patrick Mahomes per year. The belief is that he could be the future of their organization. So from a purely football standpoint, I respect the move. Otherwise, stuff is up in the air. It's a really weird situation, but I'm going to give the Browns a B+. When you factor in that they did not pick until pick number 68 and came away with the talent that they did, I think it was a good class. The Browns are a fairly good team already. You could say they were close to a quarterback away. Need help on the D-line, need help at receiver. And I think in some ways they kind of did that. Martin Emerson was drafted at 68. It was a pick that was like, all right, they got some good corners there already. Don't really know what he's going to do. Then they traded Troy Hill back to the Rams, and you go, oh, he's going to play the Troy Hill role. Makes a lot more sense, and I think this is a pretty good pickup for the Browns as a result. Emerson's a good player, too. Thought he could have gone in the top 50. Alex Wright at 78. I also like the value here. He's a developmental pass rusher out of UAB. This dude's big. He's not quite as big as the 6'7" that he was listed at on UAB's website pre-draft, but he's closer to 6'5 plus, 270 pounds. He has prototypical size. He could end up being a starter on the edge for Cleveland. Is it going to be right away? Unlikely, but the athleticism and the size is prototypical, as we would say, which is exactly what you want it to be. That's what his size and speed and height weight profile tells you. And, which is so important for defensive linemen, he has long arms, 34-inch arms, which is kind of like the top of the league standard. David Bell at number 99, I think is good value. I didn't like him in round 2. I know a lot of people love David Bell, but they didn't pick him in round 2. They got him at 99. This is a chain mover with high production. David Bell is good value at 99. Perry and Winfrey is great value at 108. Might have been some off-the-field stuff with Perry and Winfrey, but I thought he was a top 5 interior defensive lineman in this class. They got him at 108. I think it's an exceptional pick for that reason. Perry and Winfrey is a raw pass rusher. Pad level comes a little bit too high at times, but as he showed you not only during Senior Bowl week, but in the game where he won Senior Bowl MVP with 2 sacks, this is a guy who can give you pressure on the interior, and I think that's something the Browns were sorely lacking. Now, I still think they needed to go out and get a nose tackle. They haven't done that. The run game defense was not great from guys like Malik Jackson. This is your eventual or instant Malik Jackson replacement. I just wonder if he's going to end up being a starter or not. Cade York at 124, I like. The Browns have struggled finding a real true solid kicker, as a lot of the league has, and if Cade York can be that guy at 124, They saw what Evan McPherson did in division last season. He was exceptional. Cade York was very good at LSU with a big leg. 56-yard field goal is his long, and that is really good for a college kicker. Jerome Ford at 156. I can understand that, loving the pick at first when you factor in the running backs on the team. But Kareem Hunt's not going to be there forever. Nick Chubb gets injured a lot. D'Ernest Johnson is good, but who knows how long you'll be able to keep him. Jerome Ford is your D'Ernest Johnson replacement eventually, I think. And don't tell me Demetric Felton, because he has a defined role on that team, and I love Demetric Felton, but he's more of like a hybrid running back receiver, whereas Jerome Ford is that pure like third running back. And yeah, I don't think D'Ernest Johnson's going to stay for the foreseeable future in Cleveland, but I do like the player. Mike Woods in the 6th. I think Isaiah Thomas, even in the 7th, is a really, really awesome pick. He's another player with, as far as the 7th round goes, fairly high upside. Had pretty good production. Has, again, kind of that prototypical size. 6'5", 266, 33-inch arms. It's pretty good still. Ran a 4.7. Isaiah Thomas is a really, really good athlete. There are a lot of Isaiah Thomases on this planet in the sports world. He's another one, and he's another good one. Dallas Cowboys. As a Giants fan, this is an F. No, I do think it's a B+. I'm a little bit higher on the Cowboys draft than others that I've seen. Whereas I think it is a B+, but I think it's a highly volatile B+. In the same way that the Panthers was for certain reasons, so is the Cowboys. And why is that? Well, the Cowboys took an interesting blend, and as they always seem to, by the way, of solid players that will fill a role, and also huge boomer bust prospects. Micah Parsons was kind of like a boomer bust guy last year. And guess what? Micah Parsons boomed in a huge way. Huge way. One of the best players in the league last year. No question about it. Because he wasn't playing in the Mike linebacker role that Penn State had him in, where he struggled at times. They said, "You're an edge rusher." And Micah Parsons said, "I am." And he was unbelievable in that role. Still played off ball a little bit as well. Was not horrible, because he is such a great athlete, but was exceptional as an edge rusher, to where he was only just good as an off-ball linebacker. Tyler Smith has boomer bust to his game. He's not ready to start right away. Mechanically, he is not there. He's not a technically sound offensive lineman. He's going to end up playing left guard, I imagine, for the Cowboys. I think that's his role. I think he's a Connor Williams replacement. He's not ready to play right away. If the Cowboys want to play him right away, I think it'd be a mistake. But he was going to go in the first round. So it's not like it's a huge reach or anything in terms of where the league valued him. But in terms of the player you're getting right now, it's raw, and it might not end up being a great fit for him. But you have high upside there. He's a big dude, athletic, and is a mauler in the run game. Sam Williams at 56. Oh, where do I start with this one? So, on one hand, there's some nasty off-field stuff with Sam Williams. Now, some of these charges, if not all of these charges, were dropped, but the charges are nasty. They're not good. Does not speak to Sam Williams as a high character player. However, from a purely tape breakdown standpoint, and looking at it fundamentally as a football move, I like Sam Williams a lot. I think he is a really, really good player. I think he had first round upside. I think he's especially a good pass rusher. And he's got also great size. He is so twitchy and flashes the ability to showcase high-level moves as a pass rusher. I think he has pretty good hands. And again, he's really twitchy for me. 6'4", 260, 33-inch arms. That's really good size for an edge. That's someone that you can start as a 4-3 defensive end. He's not going to be like your strong side, but 6'4", 260 is good size. Ran 4.46, can fly, and every bit of it shows up on tape. He is a really good football player, in my opinion. Not an unbelievable run defender by any means, but I really think his pass rush upside is unbelievable. And when you have DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons and Sam Williams on the same defensive line rushing the QB, it's going to be a nightmare for opposing offensive lines. And as a Giants fan, I look at the Giants O-line, and I say that's not a good matchup for the Giants. I look at the Washington Commanders offensive line and say that's not a good matchup for Washington. Now, I think Philadelphia might be able to handle it a little bit better, but it's still going to be tough for any team because you have so much size and speed. And if you have Sam Williams and Micah Parsons, Not saying it's the best edge rush duo, but I think it's probably the twitchiest and the quickest and the most explosive, and that's going to be tough for opposing teams to handle because that's a lot of speed, and that's going to close a pocket pretty quickly because somebody's going to get home. I like Sam Williams as a player a ton. Jalen Tolbert, I also like at 88. Deep threat, big body guy. I think he fits in with the offense pretty nicely. I don't know that he's in the exact same mold as a Michael Gallup player, but I think they could end up filling similar roles for the Cowboys depending on injuries with Michael Gallup, which always seem to arise. Jake Ferguson, I think, is a great blocker. Others see him as a pretty high upside player. Didn't run all that well, but plays faster than that time. So could be your Dalton Schultz replacement. But I know he's a good blocker, so I value him as a second tight end on an offense. Matt Waletzko, good value as a swing tackle. And Deron Bland is an interesting name. He got a lot of hype down the stretch. Was not a name I had heard until a few weeks prior to the NFL draft. But he's got size, he's got really good athleticism, and a lot of people really liked Deron Bland. So this draft projection of priority free agent, I don't necessarily agree with upon going back and watching him because he plays significantly better than your average priority free agent. I think he deserved to be drafted in this range, if not even a little bit higher, because the upside is there. You talk about size, athleticism, and ball skills. Deron Bland is a solid pick at 167. Damone Clark would have been a day 2 pick if not for injury stuff. This is why we're talking about the volatility of this class, because Damone Clark has like a spinal fusion surgery that is going to sideline him all of 2022. But the player is also a really, really good player that would have been one of the better linebackers in the entire class. Ran really well. Has great size, 6'2.5", 239. High character, high leadership guy. I mean, not everyone gets to wear the number 18 at LSU. You got 2 numbers that you got to focus on at LSU. You got number 7, that's the guy. And then you got number 18, which is that locker room leader. Great article about it here on FanBuzz about the number 18 jersey for the LSU Tigers and everything that means. And like, you're not going to remember all these names. Lamine Barrow was actually quite a good player for LSU, even if he wasn't an NFL guy. Trey White we know about. Cushenberry and Chason were good players. And then, of course, Damone Clark was at number 18. It's just injury with him, but you got to steal in the 5th round if he's healthy. John Ridgeway, I also thought was pretty good value at number 178. Big dude on the defensive line. They needed help at that position. Ridgeway could probably end up providing it. Senior Bowl guy too. I think he's a decent player. I think the Broncos are a B to B+. I'm going to give them B+, and part of that might be subconsciously factoring in the fact that, the Broncos got Russell Wilson with one of their top picks. Yeah, that's pretty good. Russell Wilson is a top quarterback in the league, although many of you seem to forget about it. He is a great player and a locker room leader. Exceptional guy. Listen, the stuff seems corny at times, but that's who you want leading your program, or leading your team in this case, right? Russell Wilson's exceptional. You got Nick Casa Bonito at number 64. Great athleticism, a lot of bend off the edge. Bonito has high upside out of the gate as a rotational pass rusher, could become an every down player. Greg Dulcich was the best vertical tight end in the draft, in my opinion. Maybe not the best all-around tight end, but best vertical receiving tight end without question, in my opinion. I thought Ioma Uwazurike was really good value at 116. I liked the DeLaron Turner-Yell draft pick. He kind of showed up at the combine, put him on my radar. I was a little bit late to the party, but I thought he was a pretty good player when I went back and watched him. And I think the most interesting pick of this bunch is Montrell Washington of Samford. He had a coming out party of sorts to the rest of the college football world that didn't know about him already, when he basically torched Florida and put himself in a position to nearly single-handedly beat the team. Had double-digit catches, over 100 yards and a touchdown. Had a 100-yard or so kickoff return touchdown. I mean, he was unbelievable in that game. And yeah, Florida is not the Florida that we're used to. It's still SEC talent, and he was still very good in that game. Weird thing about him, you're not ready for the height and weight if you don't know about it already. Dude's about 5'9", maybe a little bit less than that, 180 pounds. Small guy, but talented guy, and could end up probably being a starter for the Broncos somewhere in the receiving core. And they've already got a talented bunch, so he's got return chops right away, with eventual chance to get into that starting lineup probably somewhere near the end of his rookie contract. I believe for the second year in a row, the Lions get an A. Man, I love the way they draft with Brad Holmes. This is not the Matt Millen Lions that many of you are used to in the 2000s. This is a Lions team that can draft. They're not afraid to move up, and they showed that with this draft. They got Hutchinson at 2. Aiden Hutchinson at 2 is good value. We know he's going to be a really solid player. He had great production, especially this last season in the Big Ten at Michigan. Single-handedly took over games in some instances as well. I think you look at the Penn State game, and Hutchinson was an animal. In the Ohio State game, Hutchinson was an animal. Wasn't quite the same player against Georgia, but not everyone's going to have their best day every single time out there. Something to keep in mind. He showed against top competition that he can play. Jamison Williams, they moved up with the Vikings, and in my opinion, they fleeced them. It was 32 and 34, essentially for 12 and 46. There might have been something else involved. Maybe this 6th-rounder as well, or this 7th. I see with Detroit here. I'm not exactly sure, but I know for sure it was 46 and 12 for at least 32 and 34. I thought that was a really good move for the Lions. They moved up 20 spots for the best deep receiver in the entire class in Jamison Williams, who probably goes earlier if not for tearing his ACL. Monster receiver. Really, really fun player to watch, and a good combo. Like, Jared Goff is not a lot of things, but something Jared Goff can do is throw the ball deep down the field on occasion, and Jamison Williams is that guy. Goff's got the arm. Joshua Pascal, kind of in the same mold of Aiden Hutchinson, in my opinion. I think this is like your Trey Flowers insurance policy. I think he's eventually going to be a starting edge with Aiden Hutchinson, so I think that's your future. Pascal, Hutchinson, and maybe even your Romeo Okwara insurance policy too. You can look at that a number of different ways. Kirby Joseph, developmental safety. This was probably about his range. He was kind of in that next tier of safeties for me because everyone knows, like, you got Kyle Hamilton and Dax Hill and Jalen Petrie, Jaquan Brisker, Lewis Seen, but in that next tier with your, like, Nick Cross and Brian Cook from Cincinnati, I think Kirby Joseph was right almost in that tier for me. I think he's probably just a tier down. I like Nick Cross and Brian Cook kind of doing their own thing. But Joseph is good. It's just about developing him. James Mitchell, kind of the same deal in terms of being a developmental tight end. Don't think he plays right away, but could be a red zone option for the Lions at times. Malcolm Rodriguez, great value at number 188 in my opinion. I think the reason he fell is just because he's undersized. He's a smaller player. Really, really strong as well. Put up, they didn't show it here, but it was something crazy at his pro day for bench reps. It was something like really wild. And then you look at the 4.5 240 and the 40-inch vertical jump. You go, this is a really good athlete. So why does he drop? He's 5'11 with 30-inch arms. And you're like, 30-inch arms? Jair Alexander has longer arms than Malcolm Rodriguez, and he plays corner. It's way more important at linebacker for shedding blocks to have longer arms than it is at a position like safety where that's not going to be a thing for every play. So it does matter. It's important at corner too, not so much in the nickel, but on the boundary it is important. For example, Jair has 1 inch longer arms than Malcolm Rodriguez. Like, I know it's not going to seem like a lot, but trust me, and this is like no like joke intended, but like an inch or two really matters in some cases. James Houston, also really intriguing player. I believe he was a Florida recruit that ended up transferring to Jacksonville State and just kind of lit that conference on fire. Are we not going to get a page loading for him? Maybe not. There we go. He's a little bit small for an edge, but as a rotational guy, and you can move both off and on the ball, this is a fun player. 6'1", 241. He has high upside. A lot of people really like this pick. Really good athlete. If we can pull up the pro day numbers here, ran 4.7, vert of 39 inches, broad jump of 10.5. This is a really explosive dude. And he was ultra productive. 100 tackles, 10.5 for loss, 4.5 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles, as you can read there. Like, this is someone who is dominant for Jackson State. I think I said Jacksonville State the first time. I don't mean that. I mean the Jackson State with Neon, Dion, Primetime, Sanders, and Travis Hunter, the number 1 recruit in the nation this past season. That Jackson State. But yeah, Houston, good athlete. High upside at 217, just a little bit smaller. Maybe my first shock draft grade of the video. I'm giving the Packers an A. I thought the Packers handled the draft really well in terms of getting talent, both high upside talent and proven, like, high floor guy. I guess not proven at this point, but in my opinion, high floor guys that will end up being at least decent. We'll start with Quay Walker, linebacker out of Georgia. And the thing that stands out with Quay is a lot of people had him at linebacker 1, first and foremost, but he is the most NFL size and speed guy here. I mean, 6'4", 240, 32 and 5/8 long arms. And again, I feel like it's going to seem like I'm making a big deal out of the arm length. It does matter, especially when you factor in the fact that 4.52 speed, explosive as hell, Quay Walker, run and hit Quay Walker could end up coming off the edge at times for the Packers. And they might not have to take him off the field. Their goal is to be a different Packers team. A Packers team that doesn't have to take their linebackers off the field, but can just leave Quay Walker out there as a 3-down player. And yeah, he's raw as a player. Doesn't have a great feel for zone coverage, but guess what? When you're as good of an athlete as he is, you can play man with a tight end. You have crazy quick downhill trigger. His reactionary skills are fantastic. His speed, closing speed, all great. He can really hit. Fun player. At 22, I like it. And I know a lot of people don't like it. I like it. Quay Walker, really high upside guy, and I think he gives the Packers the ability to do what they want to do on defense, which is keep their specific packages on the field where they don't have to go to nickel or go to their base 34 defense or change to all these different things. They can keep what they actually want to keep out there, and I think Quay Walker lets them do that. Devontae Wyatt, also from that Georgia defense, best interior pass rusher in this class for me. You could talk about Logan Hall. I think they play different roles. I don't think Logan Hall is a 3-tech. I think maybe can be a 3-tech in like obvious passing downs. But Devontae Wyatt is an every down 3-tech. And playing next to Kenny Clark, he's going to get one-on-one opportunities to win on the inside and be a huge interior disruptor for the Green Bay Packers. I think it's great. And you're like, oh, they didn't take a receiver. The value wasn't there. All the receivers were off the board. Maybe if Jahan Dotson or Burks is here, you take him at 22. Even they didn't make it to 22. Quay Walker was just the highest upside guy here. I don't mind it. Christian Watson, you get at 34. Like, what's not to like here? This is your high upside guy. All of you complaining about Quay Walker at 22 would have been stoked about Christian Watson at 22, given the receivers off the board. So what's the deal? You got him at 34. Everything worked out. It's not a reach, not a bad pick at 22 or 28, because you got the player you wanted at 34. And maybe you wanted George Pickens. He had off the field immaturity stuff that people were worried about. Christian Watson doesn't have any of that. High character guy, high upside guy. And yeah, everyone knows about the 40 time. Everyone knows about the athlete. But the agility is fantastic too. And you look at all the ways North Dakota State used him because of how frequently they run the ball. Christian Watson's taking jet sweeps and kickoffs and all these different things where he can showcase that lateral agility that most people don't have at 6'4", 210 pounds. Deep threat, not a complex advanced route tree, but he has a size that Green Bay covets, and it's going to be a really fun deep threat for Aaron Rodgers. I think, and this fits with Green Bay, I think he's like a slightly better Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And yeah, oh my goodness, Marquez made you scream with the drops, and Christian Watson might as well. Drop rate over 10%. Not ideal. A lot of yards left on the field. But at the same time, he's going to give you some huge plays the same way Marquez Valdes-Scantling did. I want to call him Marquez, but Aaron Rodgers says Marquez. Surely that has to be right, unless he's just completely disrespectful, which I guess it is Aaron Rodgers. You never know. Still probably one of the most talented players in NFL history. Anyway, Christian Watson's a great fit for the offense, and he lets them get creative with scheme touches as well. They don't have to bring on like Amari Rodgers for a jet sweep. You have Christian Watson who can do it. So I like that. Sean Ryan, probably a swing guard, potential starting guard flexibility, swing tackle in a pinch. Obviously, played left tackle at UCLA. Romeo Doubs, big deep threat receiver in the fourth. I think he has starter potential at 132. Shout out Drew, not the expert. Big Romeo Doubs guy. And I think Romeo Doubs is going to get you some dubs, if you want to look at it that way. Zach Tom, swing tackle is what he's going to be. He's played left tackle at Wake Forest. I know guys like Brett Coleman were really, really high on him. He took Zach Tom in the first round of our mock draft. That was interesting, but I think the player's pretty good. I think he's pretty good here at 140. JJ Enigbare, everyone's asking me, why is he dropping? Why is Kingsley JJ Enigbare dropping? This guy was a stud. He was projected so high. And he's a decent player. He didn't test all that well. Didn't look really explosive on tape, so that kind of matched up. But he's got the size. He's probably going to end up being a decent pro. And as a rotational defensive lineman that, well, I guess would be a 3-4 outside linebacker in their scheme. Think of Zadarius Smith for Kingsley Enigbare, I would say. You're going to get a pretty high floor guy, even if he's never elite. Rasheed Walker in the 7th was exceptional value. Again, as a swing tackle, I think the value is just too good for Green Bay to pass on at 249. Depth is so important on the O-line, and they know that. I love this draft for Green Bay. This is an easy A. You want another easy A? Houston Texans, easy A. What did they do? They say, hey, our roster is horrible. So what they do, they just went with starters all over the field. Derek Stingley Jr., 2019 tape, best DB in the class. I think no question about it. I love Sauce Gardner. Stingley in 2019 was better. Great player. So if you get that player, it's going to be a steal here at number 3. And a steal might be a stretch, but it's a really good pick. He's going to be good. Kenyon Green at 15, plug and play left guard. Love him. Didn't test all that well. It's just one of those situations where I just don't care. He plays 4 out of the 5 positions on the offensive line, is significantly better at guard. This pushes Titus Howard out to right tackle. So not only do you have an upgrade at right tackle, because Titus Howard's not playing guard anymore, he's much better at tackle. Big upgrade at right tackle. You have a big upgrade at left guard in Kenyon Green because he's going to be a really good guard with, I think, Pro Bowl, potentially all-pro potential at that spot, which is great value at 15. Jalen Petrie, really aggressive DB, locker room leader. Everybody that I've talked to with any finger on the pulse has said everyone rants and raves about Jalen Petrie. He's a locker room leader. He's the best leader I've ever seen in a locker room. Everybody loves him. How do you kickstart a culture change other than taking a guy like that in your secondary? Versatile, move him around, overhang defender, nickel, strong safety. Can play over the top. Probably wouldn't be my preferred role for him, but I think he's athletic enough to be able to do it. Love Jalen Petrie. He is over-aggressive at times. I think the same way that you'll take that with Diggs in Dallas, might be able to take it with Jalen Petrie. The difference is if he's playing, as a strong safety, it's more forgivable in my opinion. He's not going to be in the back end. He gets to be aggressive near the line of scrimmage. That's where he thrives. You want to talk about a player that can blitz off the edge from the secondary? This is your guy. John Mechie, I loved. I couldn't understand why everyone didn't love him as much as I did. He goes at number 44 in the draft. That's proper value. People were talking about John Mechie as a 3rd rounder. I go, oh, guess John Mechie's going to go in round 3 or 4. No, even coming off injury, goes to number 44. He's a great player. I love it. Starting slot right away for Houston. I think he can play on the outside as well. Christian Harris, another Bama boy. You'll notice a trend. Look at all these top programs. SEC. Big 12 DB, but you'll make an exception. Alabama, Florida, all SEC. Stanford defensive tackle. Super smart guy in Thomas Booker. Apparently fluent in Chinese. Super smart guy. And another Brett Coleman guy. They talked to him at the Shrine Bowl. Everyone talks about how smart this dude is. Gotta love that. Tegan Quitoriano is maybe the best run blocking tight end in the draft. In terms of pure run blockers, that's kind of all he is in my opinion. He's an extension of the O-line. And Austin Deculus is a good backup offensive lineman. But you got starters all over the place. Christian Harris is like the hybrid linebacker safety. He's not undersized because he's bulked up. He's a big dude now, but he moves like a safety. And even though he's not quite like the 230, 235 that you probably prefer from a linebacker, and he's not more than 6.5, he can fly. He can run and hit. Misses some tackles. I would like Christian Harris to gain a little bit of weight. And if he's a 4.5 guy instead of 4.44, you don't care because he's going to play fast. He's going to play quick. But I'd like him to be a little bit heavier. But the Texans just went out and get starter after starter after starter. CB, left guard, strong safety / overhang slot guy. Receiver, either in the slot or on the boundary. I think he can play both. And with Brandon Cooks probably being your boundary deep threat, Nico Collins as maybe your traditional X-type guy, John Mechie fits in the slot well. Christian Harris, I think, could be your Mike or Will. Dameon Pierce is one of my favorite picks of the draft at 107. No tread on the tires. He was underutilized at Florida and is a great, strong north-south runner that is mean, looking for contact, and he'll go right through you. Shifty as well. I like Dameon Pierce a ton. I thought he had a position or a chance to start at the position at running back. Now, the rest of these guys, Booker's going to be a rotational defensive lineman, can play multiple spots in the D-line. Don't know if he's a nose, but 3 to 5 tech for sure. Maybe even edge rush snaps at some point, but I don't know about that. Great athlete, too. This was just a great draft for the Texans. The Indianapolis Colts. Wow, they just got athlete after athlete after athlete after athlete after athlete. And they get an A- for doing so. Here's my hot take that a lot of you aren't going to like, and the NFL seems to agree with, is you take the better athlete first. You value the better athlete because with the proper coaching, they can become way better than the guy who's maybe a little bit better right now. So when you get a guy like Alec Pierce with great size and speed to be a deep threat in the Colts offense, it's a good fit. When you get Jelani Woods at 73, yeah, he's really raw, not a great route runner, and is just developing in all aspects of playing tight end. At the East-West Shrine game, route running started to look a little bit better, right? And he's got unbelievable size. Just need to see him get in and out of breaks a little bit quicker. And he showed at the combine that he's really getting the blocking technique down, which sometimes you saw on tape, not always. But he's a quarterback. You heard that right. And if you don't know Jelani Woods, let me break him down for you real quick. Former QB, went to Oklahoma State, transferred or changed to tight end. He's 6'7", maybe a little bit more than 6'7", 260. He is massive. Ran 4.61. Doesn't quite move that fast in game. I think he's still learning play speed. I don't think it's a problem of being a good enough athlete or not. He is a good enough athlete. Not going to have to start right away. Probably not even soon with Mo Alley Cox in there. Jelani Woods is just going to be that red zone tight end. That's just not going to be possible to cover. He's just too big and too strong. So it's a mismatch. I like the player. Bernhard Raimann, one of the most athletic tackles of all time. That's really what it comes down to. That seems like a stretch. I can promise you it's not. RAS score, courtesy of Kent Lee Platt at MathBomb on Twitter, ranks every single draft eligible or at least combine guy, but also like factors in the pro day as well, from 1987 to 2022. And Bernhard Raimann, I believe, was 17 or 18 in terms of athleticism all time. So what does that factor in? Height, weight, bench, 30 reps of the bench is insane for Bernhard Raimann. Major shock. Still ran about a 5 flat 40, 30.5 inch vert, 117 on the broad, 3 cone, 20-yard shuttle, both pretty good for a big dude like this. I mean, it's no secret he's one of the most athletic tackles of all time. Former tight end, exchange student from Austria. Great athlete and great value at 77. What's the downside, you ask? Why did he fall to 77? He's so old. He's going to be like 25 during his rookie year. And why don't I care? Like I cared about Velus Jones being old as hell. Bernhard Raimann plays offensive tackle. I do not care. He could end up playing until he's 35 and have a 10-year career at tackle and be totally fine. Whereas if you're looking at a receiver whose best aspect is being a deep threat and run after the catch guy, and you're 25 as a rookie, how long does that last? How long does that last? How good can you get? For Raimann, who's still learning the position and is already really technically sound for someone so new to playing offensive tackle, he's great and great value at 77. Offers you a starting potential tackle at left tackle, which was a hole, at 77. Nick Cross, great athlete. Great athlete. Big dude, can run and really hit. I love Nick Cross. Eric Johnson, another guy. You think Missouri State. I got to watch him kind of late in the cycle. Talked about him on my one player everyone should draft video. Dude's 6'4", 300. Big dude. And has the ability to be a rotational defensive lineman right away who was a dominant player at Missouri State. And he should be. He went to Missouri State, right? Andrew Ogletree, didn't know too much about before draft day. Great athlete. So you're hoping you can develop him in the same way you can develop Jelani Woods. Curtis Brooks, another great athlete. Everyone was a great athlete. Brooks was another guy I found out about kind of late into the cycle. I watched Cincinnati, but I was watching Myjai Sanders, or I was watching Kobe Bryant, or I was watching for Sauce Gardner, or I was watching for Darian Beavers. You get what I'm saying, right? But Curtis Brooks was someone who was a rotational defensive lineman, 6'2", about 290, and really has some juice. Let me pull up the RAS on him. At MathBomb on Twitter, right above my head there. Shout out Kentley Platt. So as you can see, yeah, height, weight, not really a height, weight, speed freak at defensive tackle. But when you factor in that he's a rotational defensive lineman, so you could compare him as a defensive end, where the height and weight is going to look significantly better. The bench was crazy for a defensive tackle. The vert was crazy. The broad was crazy. 4'9" at defensive tackle is great. Splits were pretty good as well. And then the agility scores were incredible. This is just an unbelievable athlete. And then they took Rodney Thomas out of Yale. Didn't know about him before the draft, but turns out you're going to be shocked by this. Great athlete. The Jacksonville Jaguars and their very squished looking logo for some reason get a flat B, which I think is a good grade. I think Jaguars fans are a little bit lower on this because they didn't like all the linebackers, but here's how I see it. You lost Miles Jack. You brought in Foyesade Oluokun. So draft Chad Muma, draft Devin Lloyd. Wow, so many linebackers. Oluokun, Will, Devin Lloyd, Sam, Chad Muma, Mike. You're done. That's your future. Seems pretty good to me. I love Chad Muma as a player. They got him at 70. Thought he could have gone a lot higher than that. Love Devin Lloyd. They got him at 27. I don't know if he would have gone a lot higher than that. He didn't, obviously, but was probably top 15, top 20 player in the class. Really good player. And then Trayvon Walker, we'll talk about for a moment here. You've heard all about him. We know about Trayvon Walker, but I'll tell you my angle of it. We all know, combine warrior. This dude is huge. I talked about the arms so much in this video. 35.5-inch arms. Unheard of. 6'5", 272. Ran 4.51. The agility scores are the most impressive thing on here, and that's a 272-pound man that jumped 35.5 inches. Broad was great. Three cone was a 6'8", 9. For perspective, let me go find you like Velus Jones or somebody that's this speed change of direction guy. All right, he didn't do the three cone. Okay. Here's 2022 in the combine. Do you notice anything weird? Corner. First of all, Zion McCollum, how did he fall? We'll talk about him in a bit. Dax Hill, safety. Receiver. Aiden Hutchinson's a freak. Well-documented defensive end. Safety. EJ Perry, sometimes a QB gets a really good score in here. That's a great time. And then you have the 270-pound Trayvon Walker at 6'9". Hutchinson, crazy three-cone. 100%. He's not quite as big as Trayvon Walker. Whereas Hutchinson, you'll see the arm length, which is important. As I've mentioned, 32 1/8. Trayvon Walker's got over 3 inches on him, right? At 35. And, I mean, it's faster than Kyle Hamilton. It was faster than Bo Melton. I mean, look at some of these guys. My point is, you get one of the rarest athletes in NFL draft history, plus the fact that he is a really good run defender right away. Already know that. There's no projection involved. He's a great run defender, one of the best in the class. We know he can move out in space. That fits as a 3-4 outside linebacker if you want him to do that. We know he can play on the interior because we've seen him do it at Georgia and do it at a high level. He's big enough. He's strong enough. He can play, I wouldn't do it as a base 3 tech, but he can do it if you need him to, and he did it at Georgia sometimes. A lot, even. The only thing we don't know with Trayvon Walker is a big thing. We don't know how he's going to be as a pass rusher. But what I can tell you is he's played only about 900 defensive snaps. It's about a season of defensive snaps over his entire college career. And he has flashed already as a pass rusher. So if you get this guy more time, just playing the position and playing some defense, playing as a true edge, oh my goodness. You talk about sky's the limit. There's a reason he went number 1 overall, and it's because he's going to be a baseline good player. Think Jadeveon Clowney. He will be that good, but he could be even better. And I know, Clowney bust, number 1. Dude was an all-pro. Shut up. Luke Fortner, I think, is a potential starting center at some point. I got him at 65. Brandon Linder kind of up in the air. I get that. Snoop Connor in round 5. And then took the only player ever drafted out of Washita Baptist University in Gregory Jr. That's how you say it, by the way, Washita. And then Monteric Brown out of Arkansas. I didn't love day 3 the way I loved their first few picks, but that's why I didn't give this an A+. I think B is pretty fair. You know, I think I was in similar range last year, and once again, I'm going back. Chiefs get an A+. I know some people are all over on this. I don't care. And, like, I think there is a value to seeing what other people are saying and what other people think and bouncing ideas off of them. But I see this class and I go, this is arguably the best class in the draft. You get Trent McDuffie, I thought was a top player in the draft. And that's not just top 20, top 15, top 10. Trent McDuffie, I thought, was one of the best players in the draft, period. Incredible player. Can play safety, in my opinion. We know he's going to be able to play nickel corner at a really high level. I think he can stick as a boundary. Despite having shorter arms, he has incredibly quick feet, really clean hips, all very important at corner. He's got all of it. Instincts for days, closing speed, can blitz off the edge as well, or from blitz from the secondary at least. He's not an edge guy. I don't want that to be misconstrued. The fact that you traded back up and got him at 21, you could not have made a better pick in the draft, in my opinion, for a team that really needed help at corner. George Karlaftis at 30. Starter material right away at 30 in the draft. Good value. Karlaftis was probably a top 20 player. Got him at 30. Think this is pretty good. Sky Moore at 54 was a top receiver in the class. Yeah, not top 5, but he was in that next tier, and he should never have been available at 54. With all the receiver-needy teams and with all that Sky Moore can bring to the table in terms of, yeah, he's not just a slot guy. Has huge hands, is incredibly sudden and explosive off the line, is a good route runner, really will give you his all as a blocker, and has a complex dynamic release package that can play him as an outside receiver. He's everything you want, except for the big, tall dude, but he has everything else. Play strength, hands, route running, explosiveness. Love Sky Moore. Should not have been there at 54. Brian Cook at 62. Right now, he's more fun than good, in my opinion. He's a good athlete, but this is just like your prototypical, I'm a big dude, I'm going to come down and kill you as a hitter. And he's awesome. Can be that box safety and will just lay into you. And I say more fun than good. His tape is just so fun because he's flying around the field hitting everybody. I believe he had an interception in the Bama game too, which is kind of cool. If you want to just say a quick highlight there. But yeah, Brian Cook's good. I say more fun than good, but that doesn't mean he's bad. I think he is quite a good player and good value at 62. I think he was in that tier safety with Nick Cross, and I like those players. So I thought it was a good pick at 62. And I thought Leo Chanel, by the way, I wanted to be Chanel so bad, but apparently it's Chanel. At 103 is one of the best picks in the entire draft. And I don't know, I feel like hyperbole is getting too crazy with the exaggerations. But Chanel, dude, is again one of the most athletic players we have ever seen. I'm getting sick of saying that, but it doesn't make it less true. Courtesy of Math Bomb, yeah, I mean, this goes to 10, by the way. This goes to a perfect 10. A 999 doesn't get handed out every day. If I move myself down, I will read this out for you. Leo Chanel is a linebacker prospect in the 2022 NFL draft class. I added NFL. He scored a 9.99 RAS, relative athletic score, out of 10. This ranked 4 out of 2,226 linebackers from 1987 to 2022. He is about 6'3", 250 pounds, 34 reps of 225, 40.5-inch vert, crazy broad jump, ran 4.53, 10-yard split off the charts. You want to talk about explosive? Leo Chanel is it. Agility off the charts. Dude, this guy's legit. He doesn't seem like he'd be this great athlete. Before I dig myself a hole, what do I mean by that? Dude's a Wisconsin linebacker. You think, oh, he's just a hard-nosed guy. He's going to play the run fill. He's going to hit you. And he does do that, but he is a freak athletically. He really is. He is one of the bendiest players in this draft as an inside blitzer, no less. I think he can play outside linebacker. I think he's going to be a base starting linebacker for the Chiefs, and I think he could do that as soon as right now. He is so good, and he's there at 103. Joshua Williams out of Fayetteville State University. Got to him about a month ago. Got tape sent my way. Thank goodness. Got to watch Joshua Williams. Found out about him at the Combine. Big dude. Offers you something that if you're looking for a big corner that can move pretty well, he's 6'3", long arms, big dude, and was, I would say, the best HBCU prospect in the entire draft. And I'm glad to see him go at 135. Talented player. Deserved to go this high. Darian Kennard played right tackle at Kentucky. I got flamed when I didn't include him in my first round mock in my way too early. And I probably could have at this point. Like, he was really, really good. But drops to 145. He's more of a guard for sure than a right tackle like he played at Kentucky. But I think at 145 is too good a value to pass up. Jalen Watson, you can see they're targeting a certain type of corner here in the back end. He's 6'2", 200, another big dude. It's tough to find 6'2", 6'3 corners. It really, really is. And they got a smaller corner in Trent McDuffie. They followed it up with some big guys on the outside in case they need to match up. Isaiah Pacheco. Fun running back option at the back end of the 7th round. I know MJD was super high on him, and I think I would trust MJD for a running back evaluation, even though I question some other things. I like Pacheco when I watch him too. I don't think he was even the best running back in the Big Ten, not by a lot, but I thought he was a pretty good player and good value. LA Chargers get a B, and a B I think is a very good grade, by the way. And why do they get a B? They addressed their needs. Got Zion Johnson, plug and play, starting right guard. JT Woods, going to compete as a rotational safety, offers you a lot of speed in the back end if you want to match up that way. Isaiah Spiller, I think is a solid running back. I don't know if he's ever going to be a superstar, but I think he's going to be a solid change of pace guy. Get him, maybe 10 carries a game, catch some passes out of the backfield, maybe like 10 to 15 total touches, including catching the ball. I think that's probably his range, maybe 8 to 12 touches a game, something like that, where he's not going to be a game changer probably, but can be somebody that plays an impact, especially as a pass catcher out of the backfield. I like the player. Tito Ogbonnaya at 160, another guy that I like. I wanted the Chargers to get him, and I thought he was a good fit just because he's a space eater. He offers them something on the D-line that they really don't have a ton of, which is a big, big dude. I like Sebastian Joseph Day a lot. I think Austin Johnson could be okay. They're not Tito Ogbonnaya in terms of eating up space the way that he can. It's tough to move a guy that's 324 pounds. It just is. After that, I think my favorite pick was Jamari Salyer out of Georgia. He's an interesting player. Another big dude. Like, that's kind of a trend in this draft. 6'3", 321. Falls to... Where did he fall to? Round 6, pick 16. Zerline had him as a round 4 guy. Yeah, Quentin Spain's not a great comp after we saw what Quentin Spain was like in the playoffs for the Bengals. Not great, but Salyer has played multiple tackle spots. Maybe could compete to play right tackle for the Chargers. I doubt it. I know people are saying that. I doubt it. If somebody gets injured, maybe. I don't think he's a starting right tackle. I think he could end up being a starting guard, but I think more likely he's going to be your swing guy. Somebody gets injured. Yo, you need somebody to play right tackle. Jamari Salyer. Somebody gets injured. You need someone to step in at guard. Well, Sawyer's going to be a little bit better at guard, so that's going to be better for your offense. If you get from left to right, you look at this offensive line, and you start with all-pro rookie Rashawn Slater, Matt Filer, Corey Linsley, who was an all-pro, I believe, 2 years ago for the Packers at center. Right guard is now number 17 pick Zion Johnson. It's a great player. And then right tackle is Storm Norton. That's not great. I always forget, is it the Sioux Falls kid? Is it Trey Pipkins starting at right tackle? They got Storm Norton. Where's Trey Pipkins? Backup left tackle. I mean, you could do better. You could do worse, probably, is what it is. But overall, I think, quite a good class for the Chargers. The LA Rams get a B-. Now, you could raise this if you factor in who they've acquired with the picks they no longer have. I think they did pretty well. They ended up with quite a few picks, actually. I didn't really love Darian Kendrick. I don't think he's good, and he comes with off-the-field stuff, too. And I don't know a whole lot about some of the back end of this class. Like, I didn't see Daniel Hardy. I didn't watch AJ or Curry. I saw barely any of Russ Yeast, but did see a little bit. And he was a riser. Some of you will like that a lot, probably. But I think they did pretty well, considering how late these picks were. Quentin Lake, special team impact player, I think right away. Kyron Williams, going to fill a role, receiving back out of the backfield. And yes, we all know it by this point probably, but probably the best pass protecting running back in the class. He fills a role. That's your third down back. And you're like, we have Austin Eckler. The fact that Austin Eckler has stayed as healthy as he has is incredible to me. Am I forgetting about him being injured for a significant amount of time? I mean, no. Just maybe missed 6 games due to injury in 2020. But other than that, has been pretty healthy. So, yeah, just with Austin Eckler, though, this is not a guy you want getting like 300 touches a year just because he's a little bit smaller at 5'10", 200. So I think Kyron Williams can take the heat off on that a little bit. And he's also pick number 164. There's no sweat with this. Jacoby Durant is somebody I liked a lot. Plays hard, plays fast, is pretty athletic. Made a couple big plays in the Clemson game, couple of picks in that game. Another HBCU guy that can fly, 4.38. It's a fun player. I was happy to see him get drafted as well. Saw an interview with him pre-draft. Seems like a really good kid. And I can say kid because I am now older than a lot of draft prospects, which is bizarre to me in some ways. And then I think their best pick was Logan Bruss, guard out of Wisconsin. This is someone that can compete to be a starter, like soon. 6'5", 309, probably profiles better at guard than at tackle. We know the Rams love their Wisconsin guys, and Rob Havenstein has been such a good player for the Rams for a while, and Logan Bruss could end up being a starter on that Rams offensive line. Like, I think if you follow the David Edwards path of tackle, move to guard, fairly successful, I'm looking at right guard. And if you're telling me that Bobby Evans is going to end up being their long-term starter at right guard over Logan Bruss, I would question it. I don't know that that ends up being true. I think he maybe ends up being a swing tackle, whereas Logan Bruss could end up starting at right guard. Now, Bobby Evans isn't bad, but you factor in he was a 2019 draft pick, so that's 2020, 2021, going into year 3 of his rookie deal with no fifth-year option. You need a backup plan in case he leaves in free agency, and I think Logan Bruss is a really good option. Las Vegas Raiders get a B, and I think you could boost that up even more when you factor in the fact that they got Devontae Adams, arguably the best receiver in the league. So that's a big thing. And I like their draft class too, so maybe I'm weighing that in a little bit with Devontae Adams, but I think you have to. Dylan Parham was a good pick. Guard, center flexibility. Given the fact that I would say, comfortably the second best offensive lineman on the Raiders is their center, who's young. Dylan Parham, who has center flexibility, profiles pretty well as a center, probably doesn't end up being their center and probably starts right away at his college position of right guard. Now, at worst, as you can see, Dylan Parham here could end up being a backup kind of interior offensive line replacement if somebody goes down. But I like Colton Miller. He's obviously the best of the bunch. Andre James, I think, is second best. John Simpson still has some potential, but I don't think it's all the way there yet. And Denzel Good is like a solid vet at this point, but he's 31 years old. I don't know if Denzel Good is going to end up being the guy at right guard. Leatherwood, we know is not. Got to move him back to tackle and try to develop him, even though there are some real questions there as well. But Parham, I think, ends up being a starting guard for them at some point. Maybe even a starting center, but I like Andre James. When you look at the Raiders running back room, they didn't pick up the fifth-year option on Josh Jacobs. Kenyon Drake's not going to be there forever. You need more depth at the position. No longer have Jalen Richard. Zamir White is a rotational back right away. Gets a few touches this year. Ends up being a more like 1-2 punch with somebody. Whether that's Josh Jacobs, I kind of doubt it, or whoever. You could have Kenyon Drake and Zamir White. But I think he's a running back by committee type guy, but I think he's a good one. And at 122, it's good value. Neil Farrell, I liked quite a bit as a nose tackle. I still see the value at that position. Not in the first round, not in the second unless they can do a little bit more. But third, fourth, fifth, I like a nose tackle. Neil Farrell is that. Matthew Butler, rotational defensive lineman. I think every team needs a Matthew Butler type player that profiles like a 3-tech that can slide around. 6'4", 297, ran a 5-second 40. Like, he's not bad at all. And the fact that he lasted to 175, a little bit crazy to me. I thought he was going to go a lot earlier than this. If you saw my one player every team should draft, which ended up being like a team draft preview for every single team in the league, I thought Matthew Butler was a 3rd or 4th round pick, and he goes at 175. I thought it was great. Thayer Munford is just a really experienced offensive lineman at both tackle and guard. I don't know if they announce him as a tackle. That's why it's listed there. Has played guard most recently. He kind of has had a downward spiral in terms of overall status. I think he was someone that was viewed pretty highly, and just over time, I mean, he ends up being the 238th pick in the draft. But again, in a pinch, if you need somebody to come in and play, you can do a lot worse than Thayer Munford long term. The Miami Dolphins get a B-, which again isn't a bad grade. It's just one of the lower grades I've handed out. But they didn't really have that many picks. Now, you could bump this B- up to an A if you wanted to, because they traded for Tyreek Hill, who is a game-breaking, game-changing receiver that we know can do a lot for an offense. And with Mike McDaniel calling the plays, man, I'm excited to see what they can do. Yes, I know, haters in the comments, Tua Tagovailoa, with what quarterback? Whatever. I think they're going to be able to creatively get these receivers the football. I would hate to see it just be a real quick pass screen offense for another year where Jalen Waddle is not utilized as a deep threat at all. But the fact of the matter is you can't cover both of those guys. You just can't. And deep down the field, it's going to be really tough because you can't put bracket coverage on both of them. You're going to expose yourself in so many ways, even with bracket coverage to begin with. And one of the other receivers is going to be taking advantage. With Waddle, with Hill, it's going to be a nightmare matchup. And I think it's a great move. So keep that in mind with the draft grade here. They didn't pick until 102. And they got Channing Tindall, high upside linebacker. Tindall was a rotational guy for Georgia because so many guys, so many mouths to feed, but has good size. 6'2", 230, ran 4.47, vert jump at 42 inches. Insanity. Great athlete. So many great players on that Georgia defense, and we probably haven't seen Channing Tindall's best football yet. And I really liked Eric Ezekam out of Texas Tech. He ended up being a little bit shorter than I thought. I think he was more like 6'1 and 5/8, even though he's listed as 6'2. He plays a lot bigger than that. He really does. I think he's your red zone jump ball receiver, 36.5-inch vertical jump, really strong hands. And I saw it firsthand. He made a couple nice plays against Texas as a freshman. And I think he's just been a solid player for Texas Tech ever since. He's been a player I've been high on for the past year. Did some summer scouting and found out about Eric Ezekam as a draft prospect after seeing him catch a touchdown or two over Texas. And I really, really like him as a player. And I think he gives the Dolphins a nice alternate option to Preston Williams if they don't end up retaining him. He's a really, really fun player. And I think good value at 125. I actually expected him to go a little bit later than this. And then I couldn't really tell you much about Cameron Good out of Cal. And I, of course, looked into him after he was drafted, but really wasn't too familiar with him. But has pretty good size for an outside linebacker, a rotational edge guy, maybe pass rush specialist, but kind of a tweener in some capacity. So, again, I really can't tell you too much about him, which is why I'm kind of docking this a bit. In some senses, I hope he ends up being great. But let's be honest, he was a 224th pick. Maybe will make the roster. And then Skylar Thompson was their 247th pick here late into the 7th round. Skylar Thompson was interesting. He was an East-West Shrine Game QB guy, and he impressed some guys at that game. I was still kind of surprised to see him get drafted, and I don't know if he'll make the team, so it's tough to kind of gauge this class when I think they really only have 2 guys, but factor in Tyreek Hill, and you can't be upset about this at all. B- is pretty good. The Vikings, in the first draft of new general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah from Cleveland, did pretty well. I think some people were higher on this draft than I was, but I'm going to go ahead and give them a B, cautious B- maybe, but we'll say it's a B. First draft for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. I thought they had some good picks. I didn't love the trade down from 12. They made some really great picks. and then some picks I didn't love quite so much. Whereas they traded down from 12 with the Vikings, and I think they gave up a lot of value to do so. So they had 32 and 34 after the trade. So they moved down from 12, and then they traded down to 42. Lewis Cine, I think, is good value at 32. I just didn't love the trade to get him. And then I think Andrew Booth Jr. is fantastic value at 42. If not for injuries, he's a first-round player. Ed Ingram, I liked a lot at 59. Now, I didn't love Brian Asamoah. The guys that I've talked to don't really seem to love Brian Asamoah either. Was pretty good at the Senior Bowl, but I'm not convinced he can be the 3-down linebacker that everybody says. A little bit undersized as well at 6 foot 226. Hope he ends up being a good player, but I have my questions. But the athlete and the guy is good. I mean, he was, I think, Senior Bowl Defensive Player of the Week or as voted on by players, something along those lines. So he had a really good week at the Senior Bowl down in Mobile. Caleb Evans is going to fill a role. If you look at Caleb Evans here, they really needed cornerback help. He's a big dude, 6'2", 200 pounds, 32-inch arms. Caleb Evans is a big dude, and it's hard not to get excited about his potential at 118, and he's just going to be a rotational corner. Ty Chandler's really old, but is quite a good player as a rotational running back. Jalen Naylor has some drop concerns, but is an exciting receiver. Probably will be a gunner for this team. Vidarian Lowe is the really interesting one, as Vidarian Lowe lasts until the 6th round, but gave George Karlaftis a lot of trouble. Has super long arms, 35 and 3/8 inches long, 6'5". I mean, he's got a huge wingspan, and he's just a big dude. And if you can give George Karlaftis some trouble, round 5 projection as well, and last until number 184, you're going to be a pretty good player at times. Karlaftis is a good player, so I'm bullish on Vidarian Lowe as a prospect, and in round 6, it's worth taking a shot at. Now, everyone hated the Patriots draft. Everybody hated it, and that's why I'm giving the Patriots a B. I think the Patriots did way better than anyone thinks, because the Patriots, just like the Bills, drafted for the Patriots. They didn't go best player available. I get it. But they drafted for what is going to make them a better football team. Cole Strange, taken too early in terms of how a lot of people viewed him. Had a great week at the Senior Bowl. Really, really awesome. So it's not even just the great tape at Chattanooga. He was dominant, should have been. Had a great week at Senior Bowl practices and had a higher win rate in the one-on-ones than Zion Johnson, who we all know Zion Johnson went at number 17. Cole Strange in the one-on-ones was individually better that week. And he's a plug-and-play starting right guard, eventual center flexibility. Was it too early? Sure seems like it, but it's hard to argue with him being so great at the Senior Bowl against other top prospects. And Zion Johnson, who had great tape as well, playing against better competition, wasn't even quite as good that week against the same competition. So that's something to at least consider. Same level of competition, at least. Not saying it's the same matchup every time. Tyquan Thornton with number 50. Drop issues, for sure, but can absolutely fly. The Patriots didn't have a guy that can get vertically the way Tyquan Thornton can. He's a track star, but he's also a bigger receiver than you probably think. 6'2", long arms as well. Ran 4.28, can jump. He is going to fit in a particular role for the Patriots, and that is to win vertically. They didn't have a player like this. It's hard for me to really hate that pick, even though it seems a bit early. It's tough to find a guy like that. Marcus Jones, I love. Very Patriots pick. And we've seen in the past that the Patriots will target huge corners, big dudes. We look at some of their big misses. You look at Vanderbilt corner, who I'll come up with his name. I can only think of John Vay Johnson, who is a receiver. It's totally not the correct answer, but it's a name kind of like that. There's it's not a hyphen. I have his face in my mind. He has little, I don't want to say short dreads, but kind of like cornrows and kind of tied off at the side. Why can I think of his name? I'm going to notice it immediately. It is Joejuan Williams. And Joejuan Williams, I guess he does have short dreads now. He's the big dude, 6'3", 212. has never played because he hasn't been good enough. Was picked at number 45 overall. And the Patriots saw what J.C. Jackson could do, and they go, oh, we don't need the big corner that we thought we did. So they go out and they get Marcus Jones. Marcus Jones was unreal at Houston. Phenomenal tape, both at corner and both on special teams as a returner. I think the Patriots are really going to see his value as a return man. And as a special teamer, maybe think Justin Bethel in some ways. That could be Marcus Jones, worst case scenario. He's a really good player who is just super small. He's a nickel, but his tape is phenomenal. So you got to factor that in. Great ball skills as well. Really good player in my opinion. So that's another small corner. They go Jack Jones. Small corner, right? 5'11", but does have longer arms than you'd expect. Over 30 inches, nearly 31 inches long. Plays really feisty, really twitchy, good athlete. Ran 4.51, good ball skills. They're going for their J.C. Jackson type guy. And Jack Jones was a USC guy. Ended up getting into some off-the-field stuff. Goes to Arizona State. Puts up pretty good tape there. Seems like he turned it all around. I like Jack Jones. Now, what was the big next issue? They doubled up on running back with running backs on roster. And then they took Bailey Zappi to be a backup quarterback. Listen, you got to have somebody that can run the offense if Mac Jones gets injured. I think Zappi literally is the guy for that. And then Pierre Strong, high upside, home run hitting running back. Ran in the 4.3s. He was, I think, Arkansas High School Player of the Year, and then ends up going to South Dakota State. I don't know what's up with that, but his tape was pretty good. So they get him in the 4th round at 127. That's a good pick. They love to rotate in their running backs, but then the Kevin Harris pick, it's like, why would they do that? Why would they take Kevin Harris? Kevin Harris has some really good tape. Really does. In the SEC, before injury, if Kevin Harris doesn't get injured, I think he's one of the first running backs off the board. I really, really do. So the fact that he was available in the 6th round, coming off an injury somewhat, I think like a year plus ago, but is a really, really good player. And there's so much injury and overturn and or turnaround with running backs is what I want to say, that I don't really think it hurts to have too many, especially when you're the Patriots that like to run the damn ball. And some of these guys aren't going to be running backs right away. They're going to make impacts on special teams. But I don't mind the multiple running backs for the Patriots where they got them in the draft. But yeah, they have running backs for days. Damian Harris is great. Ramondre Stevenson is great. James White's your receiving guy. But having a 4th and 5th running back, I don't think is horrible when you're the Patriots and an injury or two is going to happen. So let's say Ramondre Stevenson goes down. You're down to Damian Harris, the rookie Pierre Strong, and James White. Well, James White isn't really a running back. He is a receiving threat out of the backfield. He's not really a runner. So you're kind of down to 2 running backs, Damian Harris and Pierre Strong. What do you do at that point? I don't mind taking another running back, so I will rationalize that pick. Then they take Sam Roberts. Never had heard of this guy. At a Northwest Missouri State University. It sounds like a fake place. And there's going to be nothing on him. But I looked into it, of course. Had to. And this dude was a monster at Northwest Missouri State. And yeah, I guess you probably should be playing at Northwest Missouri State and getting drafted. But he was the top defensive player, maybe the top player in the conference. And when you're an interior defensive lineman and you can get 50 tackles, 13 tackles for loss, 6 sacks in 13 games, and then a year later, 49 tackles, 10 for loss, and 5 sacks, you can get pressure, you can be a difference maker, and you could be a developmental late round guy. It's hard to even find it listed anywhere, but he's 6'4" and 5'8", 287 pounds. He's a big dude. Profiles is probably a 5 technique based on that size. And it's the 6th round. It's pick number 200. If you're going to take a shot at a guy that might not even make the roster anyway, take a high ceiling developmental player. What's wrong with that? You're not finding a starter there usually. Take a shot. I like it. Chasen Hines at center. Andrew Stuber. Stuber's another great value pick in my opinion. Like, how is he available here at this point? Classic Patriots pick. Big dude. 6'7", 325 pounds. Could have gone a lot earlier. Zerline has him in the 5th round. Ends up going at pick number 245. Is that a joke? I think the Patriots did way better in the draft than you think, and I don't care if you disagree. And then I'm going to come back. I can't believe this. I'm going to say the Saints had a worse draft than the Patriots. I am. I'm going to say they got a B-, which isn't a bad grade, by the way. They had fewer picks, and I didn't love all of them. Chris Olave, they had to trade up to get. Olave is good. Good receiver, too. They had to trade up to get him. Don't love that, but he's a good player. That's fine at 11. You sit and wait for Trevor Penning. I also think that's fine. Penning is a high upside player, one of the most athletic tackles of all time. Talk about Bernard Ryman. Well, Penning is even more athletic and even bigger and even younger than he is. Love Trevor Penning at 19. Sky's the limit. I didn't love Alontae Taylor at 49. I see the vision with Alontae Taylor. I do. He's got good size. 6 foot, 199, 32 plus inch arms. Long corner. We like that. 4.36 speed. We like that. The only problem, as I outlined in my Alontae Taylor video with my not so favorite picks of the 2022 draft, he doesn't exactly play that fast, and I have questions about that. But there is something to be unlocked there, and we know Tennessee doesn't unlock players, and they end up being way better in the league a lot of the time. So, yeah, did Alontae Taylor go too early at 49? Probably so, but corners were flying off the board, and he could end up being an impact player for them. So, I don't really mind it. DeMarco Jackson at 161. He's a thumper type linebacker. Got the App State guy drafted. Good to see for Daniel Jeremiah. He's got good size, 6'1", 230 plus. Ran 4.55. Good athlete. Have to see if he ends up making the roster. I think being a 5th round pick probably is a better chance. And then I had never seen Jordan Jackson before seeing his name on draft day. Well, or at least not knowingly. Saw Air Force actually play a couple games last year. The Nevada Air Force game, I remember actually being quite good. I did see Carson Strong back in that and Romeo Dubs, but wasn't watching for Jordan Jackson, I'll tell you that. So I thought it was a pretty good draft by the Saints, but I think understandably, at least from my perspective, they can't do a whole lot better than a B- or a B because they didn't really do anything spectacular. They just got some pretty good players, and some players could end up being quite good, but there's a little bit of volatility here with how good these players actually become. And you could say that about a lot of different teams and draft prospects, obviously, but when I have questions about, okay, is Trevor Penning going to reach his ceiling? Sure hope so, but question about that. Like Chris Olave is a really high floor player. We know he's going to be pretty good, even if he's never elite. Trevor Penning could be elite, but we don't know. There's a little bit of rawness to his game coming from Northern Iowa. I think you have to expect that. Alontae Taylor, will he ever reach that full potential? Will DeMarco Jackson end up being a big player for them? I think you got to really think about worst case scenario with a lot of these, and Chris Olave might end up being the only real starter for them, especially right away. So I think that's something to consider. I hope Trevor Penning is a monster. I'm really rooting for him. But there is some volatility there. I think you have to understand that. All right, you guys ready for my so-called Giants bias? I am a Giants fan. Most of you will know it at this point, despite the name Bengal. Man, what a stupid decision. How soon before I actually just start going by my name? Gene Dangus, we'll see. But the New York Giants, I'm going to give them an A-. Yeah, Giants bias. Listen, I didn't love day 2 and 3. I didn't love it. However, the reason this is an A- for me at the end of the day, here's why. I think they got the 2 best players in the draft in Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal. Neal was my number 1. He is a height, weight, speed freak with good tape at Alabama. That's pretty good. He was my number 1 player. Kayvon Thibodeau, I think it probably goes without saying, but he was my number 2 player in the draft. Super high upside player. He was a consensus number 1 for a while and is a great athlete, can fly off the ball, and is still developing his moves as a pass rusher and is a good run defender. Love Kayvon Thibodeau. So even though I didn't love some of these other picks that we'll get into, and that's just not loving them. Some of them are okay. But I love Thibodeau. I love Neal. Yes, you picked at number 5 and 7, but if you get, in my opinion, the number 1 and number 2 players in the draft, and you didn't pick at number 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, I feel like that's pretty good. So I am rating this a bit higher. It's not an A+, but if you see it from my perspective, and I say that you got the 2 best players in the draft, you think that's an A+ off the bat, but I didn't love day 2. They got Wan'Dale Robinson, who I think is a really good player. I really do. And they're not going to trade Kadarius Toney. I had theorized when he was drafted that, oh, he's just going to play the role that Kadarius Toney was going to play. But general manager Joe Shane says, listen, we're going to have them both on the field. You're not going to be able to cover both of them, and I get that. I just don't know if Wan'Dale Robinson's like an every down player. He's a little bit lighter. He's really tough, though, so I don't know if the injury concerns are there, despite being only 5'8", 178. He's a little dude, but he plays really hard. I think he's probably a slot receiver or gadget. I do like the player. I just thought there were some other players on the board that I would have preferred for the Giants' needs at least. And I know you don't want to draft based on needs, but I also don't think Wan'Dale Robinson was the best player available. So that's my issue with that pick, but I really do like the player, and I think he's going to have some electric moments for the Giants that you'll point to and you say, how could you be mad about having this player? And it isn't that. I want to make that pretty clear. It isn't that. It's just in terms of really improving the team. I don't know where Wan'Dale Robinson puts you, at least right away, because you have Kenny Golladay, who underperformed. You have Kadarius Toney, who knows what's going to happen there, especially with how often he's injured. Sterling Shepard is an injury machine, won't be on the team for long. Apparently shopping Darius Slayton. He's not the same type of player. Doesn't hurt to have 4 good ones either. And I know that Brian Daboll is going to be able to utilize Wan'Dale Robinson creatively and Mike Kafka as well. So I'm excited about his potential. It's just you got to understand my point of view of not best player available and also not really filling a need. Like, if you didn't trade back multiple times and lose out on Andrew Booth Jr., who I would have loved, or any of these top linebackers, the Giants didn't come away with a linebacker until Micah McFadden in the 5th round. And you passed on, like, Chad Muma and Troy Anderson and Christian Harris and Nakobe Dean, obviously. And literally every linebacker not named Quay Walker or Devin Lloyd. And I would have loved one in round 2. It might have been a little bit early, but it's such a need for the Giants. And you got some high potential linebackers in this class. I really would have enjoyed a linebacker at some point before round 5. And I know it's don't draft based on need, but some of these guys ended up being best player available. And the Giants decided to go a different direction. Joshua Ozudu at 67. He was probably going to go round 3 or 4. Need left guard, need right guard. Well, don't need right guard anymore with Glowinski, but need guard in general. And Ozudu, who has tackle experience too, could be a swing tackle, probably as a guard though. Emergency in case of injury. Will compete for a starting job at some point. Didn't love the player, but I think it's fine. Cordell Flott. A lot of people actually really like Cordell Flott. And I think he's going to be a slot corner. Which the trouble with that is I think Aaron Robinson is a slot corner. Flott, 6'1", 30-inch arms. Pretty good length, not anything crazy. I wouldn't say he's the best ball skills, only 1 career interception. But it's pretty sticky in coverage at times. Pretty athletic. So I like, but don't love Cordell Flott. And again, I think it was a little bit too early, which is a trend with a lot of these picks. The first pick I really like out of the first round was Daniel Bellinger, tight end from San Diego State. He's a complete tight end, in my opinion. He's 6'5", 253, great athleticism, and he can block. I really, really like the player. So draft projection round 4, I think he could have gone even earlier than this. So this was my favorite pick of day 2 or 3 thus far. Dane Belton is going to be a rotational backup safety for the Giants, probably a special teamer. Micah McFadden probably will see more reps than he should. I think the player is decent, but not great. I think he's probably, again, going to be a special teamer or potential backup that rotates in. DJ Davidson, I had never watched before the Giants drafting him. And then they took another UNC guard, and this is the worst of the two, and Marcus McKeithen. I watched the UNC line. It was brutal. It really was brutal. And McKeithen's got unbelievable size. And the tackles, I think, were a big issue of why that line was so bad. Maybe these guys are going to be better individually. But let's be honest, he's a backup. He's not really going to be expected to start. If he improves enough to be a starter, it's a massive win. And then Darian Beavers at 182. I thought this was a pretty good pick at the spot. I like Darian Beavers. Didn't love him, but I like him in the back end of the 6th round or top of the 6th round. I think that's pretty good value. 6'4", 240. He's a hybrid outside linebacker. I think he works really, really well in the Giants system. He's going to be in that like Tyus Bowser role if you think about the Wink Martindale defense with the Baltimore Ravens last year. I like Darian Beavers. He's a good athlete that is kind of a bit of a tweener, but in that Tyus Bowser role, I think he's going to work out pretty well. Call him a below average athlete. I think he plays pretty quick on tape at times, so I don't really necessarily totally agree with that evaluation. I think he's at least an average athlete. I'm not saying above average, but I think he's a fine athlete, and I think he's going to play a pretty good role for the Giants as like a sub-package rotational player. He's probably going to be in that Tyus Bowser role when he's on the field, which is not going to be all the time, but I think it's good value at 182. I have been talking for over 2 hours. Let's see how long this video ends up being with the Jets, who get an A+. Oh, the Jets killed it. God, took Sauce Gardner at 4. Think it's a good pick. Starts at corner right away. Garrett Wilson at 10. Very solid pick. Probably starts at receiver right away. You're going to notice a trend here. They ended up trading back into the first for Jermaine Johnson, who they viewed as a top 8 player on their board, and they got him at 26. 26 for Jermaine Johnson. 26 overall for maybe a top 10 player. Not every team had him that high. Apparently the media was a little bit higher on him, but I find it difficult for a player with ideal size and incredible athleticism who was dominant at the Senior Bowl with production. I don't know how he could have been valued too much lower. Prototypical size. Again, I think a great athlete with an incredible 10-yard split, which is most important for these defensive linemen. He's incredibly explosive, and he's just getting better as a player. A little bit older, but at 26, the value is incredible. I had him as a top 10 player. Breece Hall at 36. Jets traded back up to get him with the Giants. Breece Hall's good. Breece Hall's really good. Maybe the best running back in this draft. Tough with Kenneth Walker, but right in there. Hall's going to come in and compete for a starting job right away. I love Michael Carter, but at the same time, he's not your every down guy. He was at his best when he was the 1-2 punch with Javonte Williams. That's what it is here. Jeremy Ruckert, or as the Long Island Jets fan said when he took him, Jimmy Ruckert. Not even long. That was the Seton Hall, or that was the former Seton Hall basketball, St. Peter's Prep, Jersey City head coach. I don't know that he's Long Island, but Jeremy Ruckert is a Long Island kid. Grew up a Jets fan, apparently. Fun fit. I like Ruckert. Could be better in the pros than he was in college, and he was a good college player. Great blocker. I think a decent receiver, underrated as well, but you factor in all the Ohio State receivers, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, a lot of players to get the ball to. So it's understandable that he wasn't super productive. Max Mitchell in the 4th is great value. Could end up being a starting caliber tackle. And then Michael Clemens in the 4th as well. There's the last pick that they drafted, and it was a good pick. He could end up being a great rotational player, great size, 6'5", 263, super long arms. Not an incredible athlete, but a good enough athlete. And as a rotational player, I think it's great value at 117. Jets absolutely knocked it out of the park. The Philadelphia Eagles get a flat A. But if you factor in getting A.J. Brown, which I think you have to, it's an A+. Jordan Davis has potential to be a really, really special player. Learning from Fletcher Cox, I think, is going to be really, really fun for him. I hate it as a Giants fan. But when you factor in that Jordan Davis was on this great D-line and he played a specific role, he didn't really get to show off how great of a pass rusher he could end up being. So that is a little bit of projection. But the athlete is, again, phenomenal. I've never seen a player like him at all. People have given him an Albert Hainsworth comparison. Listen, he's 6'6", tested at 340, playing weight's probably closer to 360, ran 4.78, broad jump at 123 inches there is literally the craziest shit I've ever seen in my life. Excuse the language. It's warranted here. Unbelievable. Cam Jurgens, Jason Kelce loves already, and is in the Jason Kelce mode. Athletic center that can get out in space. Great zone blocker. Love Cam Jurgens. Nakobe Dean, major injury red flags, pushes him to 83, but he's a great player. He was kept clean and was able to make plays at Georgia, and guess what? Guess who's in front of him? Guess who's going to make Nakobe Dean's life easy again? Jordan Davis. Javon Hargrave's up front. Fletcher Cox for now is up front. Nakobe Dean injury concerns are real, but the player is phenomenal. After that, I think the draft kind of drops off. I think Grant Galcatera in the 6th round is pretty good. Did not know Kyron Johnson before he was drafted, but has a decent grade on him. Round 5 guy. I couldn't force myself to watch Kansas after freaking Texas football, dude. I don't even want to talk about it. But this draft was really, really good. And they got A.J. Brown, and I am factoring that into the grade. I don't care. It's A.J. Brown. Steelers get an A-. I think it's a pretty good grade. And they got the highest floor quarterback in the draft. Helps them be competitive right away. Mike Tomlin is just like the best head coach that we've seen, or in that top tier at least. Like, yeah, he's no Bill Belichick, who you might say is carried by Brady. I think that's foolish considering how great their defenses were every year, but it's no secret how great Brady has been. But Belichick's right up there. Love Sean Payton, but dude, Mike Tomlin is in that same tier. Mike Tomlin's unbelievable. The Steelers just don't have losing seasons, and it's Mike Tomlin and the great pieces around him, of course. Kenny Pickett's going to help them keep that the case. He is the best day one starting QB that was in the draft. Even if his potential isn't elite, I think he's going to be, like, best case scenario in that Kirk Cousins tier, which can help you win. That's going to seem like rude, but Kirk Cousins, with a team around him, you can be successful. Look at Jared Goff. Rams went to the Super Bowl. Look at the Niners. Jimmy Garoppolo. Nick Foles had a great playoff run, and the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. If you have the team around them, the team can be successful. So Kenny Pickett will give you a chance to win. George Pickens at 52 was great value. Immaturity issues I point to consistently with him is what I've been hearing. But the player is unbelievable. 6'3", 200, ran sub 4.5. Coming off an ACL tear somewhat recently as well. The player is unbelievable. I think that George Pickens has the most potential of any receiver drafted out of the 1st round, and I'll include Christian Watson in that. George Pickens has true X potential. He is a good route runner. He has great hands. He has great deep ball tracking and route pacing. I mean, he's an elite caliber receiver that fell to 52. I love the player. DeMarvin Leal at 84. Leal, by the way, not Leal, in case you thought it was Leal. I did for a little bit in the summer, but it is Leal. DeMarvin Leal, really good player. Didn't really live up to his initial hype at Texas A&M, but I think that's because he was in the wrong role. He played way too much edge, where I think he's a 3-tech. And yeah, his best ability could be versatility, moving around. But if you have him learning from Cam Hayward, that's a pretty good guy to model your game after. And I think, I don't want to say they're built from the same cloth necessarily, but I could see him filling that role. Here's Cameron Hayward, the perennial all-pro grade, pretty good. This was a different grading scale at the time, so this is not what the grade actually was. Grades before 2014 were on a different grading system, so that's not what it is, but it seems to be pretty true. 6'5", 294, 34-inch arms. He's just a little bit smaller in kind of every way. Don't really get to see the testing, but I think it's a pretty good guy to model your game after. Leal has a lot of potential as well. I like the pick for a team that needed defensive line help. Calvin Austin, kind of a gadget guy. Like I saw the Jakeem Grant comparison. I like that. He's a great route runner. He's 5'8", 170. So small, but plays real strong, can go up and be a jump ball guy at times. Great vert, long arms. Like, this is a pretty decent player. Was amazing at the Senior Bowl. So quick off the line as well. So agile. Calvin Austin's a really fun player, but I can understand not taking him until deep into the 4th because he's such a tiny guy. And you worry about usage and durability and things like that. Then you took Cam Hayward's brother, really a fullback, Connor Hayward out of Michigan State. Could see the value there. Need more fullbacks. You got Derek Watt. Now you got Connor Hayward. They just like the brothers. And now they have 2 sets of brothers on the team in TJ Watt and Derek Watt and Connor and Cameron Hayward. And if you factor in the Edmonds, they actually have Trey Edmonds. They have the running back, Trey Edmonds. So, and then Terrell Edmonds. I guess you have 3. You have 3 sets, even if they're not fully completed. No JJ Watt and no Tremaine Edmonds. But man, this was a really fun draft, and I have to give it an A-. Seattle Seahawks get an A- as well. This is a great draft. Charles Cross at number 9, starting left tackle. Boye Mafe twitched up edge at 40. He has really fun pass rush potential, still evolving. Had a pretty good week at the Senior Bowl. Kenneth Walker. Why would he take a running back? We have all these running backs. Chris Carson may never play again. Rashad Penny, final year of his deal. DJ Dallas. I don't even need to address that. Or Travis Homer. You should know. Kenneth Walker is arguably the best running back in the draft. This is a good pick for a team that loves to run the ball. Abraham Lucas at 72, potential starting right tackle. I mean, they're revamping their entire offense, really. This is great. Kobe Bryant, Thorpe Award winner. Not a great prospect, but at 109, it's worth a slot there, draft slot. Tariq Woolen, everyone was asking me why this dude was falling. First of all, he's a great fit for Seattle. That's why I mocked him there every single draft. He is a freak athlete. It's easy to look at the 6'4", 205 with 33, nearly 34-inch arms, ran 4.26, 42-inch vertical, and say, why is this guy not being the first corner off the board? Obviously, that's an exaggeration. It's because he's not a corner, is kind of what it is. Still learning the position, was a receiver, is, I think, only familiar with corner for the past 2 years he's been playing it. I want to say only 2 years. So he's still very raw. Does not have clean hips. Does not have particularly quick feet. And there's a reason he didn't do the 3-cone or the 20-yard shuttle, because you would see he's not quite as quick as you'd want a corner to be. He's faster than quick, and it's so tough to be quick. It's 6'4". Dude is huge. But in the Seahawks system, I am confident in his development, and he's going to fit the system. Everyone is telling me, the Seahawks don't value length like they used to. It's the same coach, guys. I mean, you can still implement similar players into similar roles when you've seen it be successful. And yeah, it's a little bit different than it used to be, but they're going to find a way to use him, and I'm excited about it. Tyreek Smith is good value at 158. Bo Melton, I know Brett Coleman was really, really high on when we talked. Again, he had him in like the second round, which is quite high, obviously, but the player's pretty good. I think he's a gunner, is my concern. But at 229, receiving upside as a gunner, I think great value. San Francisco 49ers. Man, I'm going to be careful about critiquing this team because I thought they had like 18 running backs on roster last year, and then they took Eli Mitchell, and I'm like, what are they doing? And then Eli Mitchell was amazing. So I will not be talking about Tyrion Davis-Price in any negative capacity when he goes for over 1,000 yards as a rookie out of nowhere. Surely this will be the one that doesn't play, Trey Sermon. But Drake Jackson at 61, this player has tremendous upside. So he tried to cut a little bit of weight and wasn't really quite the same player at 250 that he was at 270. So I think you're going to look for the Niners to ask Drake Jackson to beef up a little bit, get closer to 275 where we've seen him before, 280, and try and mold him into that like Eric Armstead type role. And I think he's going to be a lot better for it, but he's got a lot of upside. He's got a lot of upside. It's just about unlocking and untapping that full potential. He was supposed to be a top like 15 pick before the 2021 season happened. So he's got potential. It is there. Just about getting him in the right role. So we'll see what they want to do there. Tyrion Davis-Price, I will not make a statement on. Danny Gray, deep threat. 49ers could use it. I think it's fine at 41. Spencer Burford, tackle at UTSA, guard flexibility. 49ers need a guard. Spencer Burford comes in. Didn't really know too much about a lot of the rest of these guys. Actually, that's totally not true. It's literally only Samuel Womack. Nick Zakelj had a good Senior Bowl week. Senior Bowl invite out of Fordham, but I didn't see any tape on him at Fordham. I only saw the one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl, so take that with a grain of salt, but I think that is pretty important. Kalia Davis at UCF, one gapping defensive tackle that has kind of been a bunch of different things. Played linebacker at UCF, moved to edge, moved to D tackle, and he's kind of kept his athleticism and twitchiness despite being over 300 pounds now. And I think he is somebody to look at and really keep an eye on, because he didn't play And he actually, it's funny because he wore number 22, but he didn't play in 2020. He was like Tay Gowan, who we talked about and talked to a lot last year at UCF. He was a 2020 opt-out, got injured in 2019, or a little bit in 2020, certainly injured in 2020, and his season was cut short. But the player is good, and guys like Kalia Davis, and the fact that he's available in round 6 for the Niners to snag him, I think this is a really good fit for the 49ers and Kalia Davis. I like it. I really do. So hopefully I'm saying his first name right, but his tape was fun to watch, and he was someone that kind of came out of nowhere, and I'm excited to see what happens with a lot of these guys. Like Tariq Castro-Fields, I was kind of surprised to see available at this point. He's got good size, decently long arms, fast, played at Penn State. Not the cleanest tape or anything like that, but it's made some big plays, and you don't really want to watch the big plays. You want the guy that's consistent at corner, in my opinion. But Tariq Castro-Fields really not bad value here at 43. I think he could end up being a good rotational guy for them. And then I cannot believe Brock Purdy got drafted. Tampa Bay Buccaneers get a B+. And I know a lot of people are a lot lower on this. I don't know why. I like the Bucs draft a lot. Logan Hall, I think for a lot of teams would not have been the best pick. For the Bucs, I like it. He's going to play that 5-tech role, I imagine. Slide inside to 3-tech on clear and obvious passing downs. But I think he's going to be their base 5-tech. I think he's going to end up playing the Ndamukong Suh role a lot, or even William Golston. I think he fits that kind of same mold. And when you can get him on a runway, his bull rush is phenomenal. And he's a pretty good player. He's like a hybrid interior defensive lineman edge guy. That's what the Bucs needed. I think it's good value at 33 for a guy that could have snuck into the first round. Luke Gadecki here at 57 could end up starting at left guard for him. Played left tackle at Central Michigan. Was pretty good there. Or played right tackle at Central Michigan, excuse me. Was pretty good there. Probably going to end up playing guard in the league, and he's a good fit at left guard for the Bucs, who could use one. I love Rachaad White. There was a lot to like. I thought he was going to go in this range, and I'm glad to see he actually did, because not everyone was as high as I was, but he just seems like a stud. And you look at it and you go, okay, why did he drop? And I think it was just production at the end of the day. Not a ton of production, but was fairly productive, I guess. 6 foot, 214 pounds, ran 4.48. Explosiveness is shown from the vert and the broad jump, which is only 2 inches longer than Jordan Davis at 340 pounds. Think about that. But I found his contact balance to be really good. The only thing is about getting him out into space. But when he gets out into space, he's a really, really tough guy to tackle. And I think with more experience, he's only going to become a better player. And I think if there's anyone that can become like the third round running back, like Kareem Hunt, come out of nowhere and just be a great, great player, I think it's Rachaad White. He is 23. That could have dropped him a bit. But yeah, just went over 1,000 yards. Didn't play in 2019. Literally just 2020. Minimal attempts in 2021. But, I mean, the player is really good. It's tough not to like him. I loved watching him. He is a super fun player to watch. Would highly recommend it if you can. Even if you don't have access to all 22. For a running back, it's really important for vision. But, I mean, go watch some highlights and just have fun. Because he is a fun player to watch. Even on highlights, I imagine. Cade Otton at the top of the 4th. Potential starting tight end. I saw a Cam Brate comparison out there. I think that's fine. It was great value. Now, his production was down because of injuries and weird COVID stuff and all that, but he's a really good player, and I think will eventually be a starting tight end, maybe sooner than you think in Tampa Bay because they lost O.J. Howard. Gronk's a question mark. Cameron Brate's going to be gone. But until Cam Brate ends up leaving, he could be the guy, and then Cade Otton. Jay Camarda, probably the second or third best punter in the draft, depending on how you feel about Punt God, but Jordan Stout was kind of like the number one guy on NFL teams as far as I was aware, and he ends up going as the first punter. Camarda ran pretty quick. I can't really analyze the punter pick too much. He was good at Georgia. SEC, I think special teamer of the year or something like that. Zion McCollum, I cannot believe was available at 157. I really can't. He's a high character guy by all accounts. He is 6'2", 200, with 31-inch arms, ran 4.33, had a vertical jump near 40 inches. His 3-cone was the best at the combine by a lot. Now, We talked about RAS a little bit. Let me show you it again. Ahem, let me read this aloud for you. Zion McCollum is a CB prospect in the 2022 draft class. He scored a 10 RAS out of a possible 10. This ranked 1 out of 1,923 cornerbacks from 1987 to 2022. So he is the 97th percentile for height, 85th for weight, 92nd for vert, 97th for broad, nearly 99th percentile for 40, 97th percentile for 20-yard split, 99th percentile for 10-yard split, 97th percentile for short shuttle, and 99th percentile for 3-cone. So that's when you all go in unison. Well, that's why it's not an athlete competition. You got to be able to play football. Zion McCollum can play football. He's a great cornerback prospect, and the only downside is he's not as physical as you'd want him to be, and played at Sam Houston State. But the thing about evaluating cornerbacks, in my experience, in the case of like a Sean Murphy-Bunting, is it's traits over competition. Like, yes, you want to be able to see like how they fare against a truly great receiver. He didn't get that opportunity. But when you look at the hips, you look at some of his greatest attributes, some of them are highlighted here, like size and football intelligence. He was a team captain, high character guy. It's amazing that he lasted this long. But yeah, he like wasn't physical enough in my opinion. And I think that's probably highlighted a little bit here. Just needed to be a little bit more physical, but he's got the size to be able to do that. I think that's a coachable thing. Dane Brugler said Kokeeft is a great run blocker. Didn't expect to see him drafted. It's kind of all I know about him. And then Andre Anthony was taken at the back end here. But yeah, I think the draft is incredible. And I think Zion McCollum could be the hidden piece here. I think he's really good. And I don't believe that he went at 157. I think that's an absolute steal. And as a rotational corner on the Bucks, I cannot imagine how good of a pick this is. I mean, this is insane to me. I think the Tennessee Titans get a B+. However, there's a big however here. When you factor in the A.J. Brown trade, where you end up with Treylon Burks, and I get, oh, we couldn't pay him. Yeah, you could have. You could have. A.J. Brown's really good. Treylon Burks is not that player yet. Maybe he could be. It's a big gamble. But when you factor in the A.J. Brown trade, this could go from a B+ to like a C+. It's that big of a range for me, but I like their picks. I think Treylon Burks is good, and he's going to play the A.J. Brown role, and he profiles fairly well to be able to do so. Roger McCreary had excellent tape last year. Was the best corner in the SEC, in my opinion, last season. Doesn't mean he's a better prospect than Stingley, but I think he had the best tape in the SEC last season. He has short arms. That's a genuine concern about whether he can be an outside corner on the boundary or not, or just a nickel, but I think the player is really good. Nicholas Petit-Frere could be an eventual starting tackle. Took him at number 69. It was a nice pick for developmental reasons, and I think he can play swing tackle for that team as well, where you don't have to start him, but if somebody gets injured, plonk him in there, you'll be good to go. As far as any rookie would be, it could be a little rough, but that's kind of the guy long term. Malik Willis at 86. I mean, it's Malik Willis at 86. Yeah, you could say, oh, Malik Willis trash. Listen, Malik Willis at 86 is phenomenal value any way you dice it up. He's going to a power run heavy offense. He's not going to have to be making all these plays. He's not going to start right away because you got Ryan Tannehill there. And when you factor in the character, the work ethic, it's reportedly all very high. The leadership, very high. He's soft-spoken, but respected. I think that's a fine quality in a quarterback. And that's the person. And person is really important, especially with a quarterback, I think more than any other position. And then you factor in the arm. He's got a huge arm. He's so athletic. He's a big dude. I mean, he's 6'1", 220 pounds at quarterback, like a little bit small in terms of height, but is a big dude as a runner. I mean, he's like a truck sometimes. He is extremely tough to tackle. He's a play extender, and it's just some things you want to see him clean up. Like, the consistency hasn't been there, but 2 different play callers at Liberty. I don't really trust Hugh Freeze as this great play caller anyway. And a lot of these concepts were super predictable. They ran like stick every play. There were curls on the field every play. The routes were running into each other. I hated watching the Liberty offense. And Malik Willis really wasn't granted an opportunity to go through reads routinely, but he was able to do it. It was just about, like, sometimes he would predetermine where he's going with the football and not notice the safety rotating over or not seeing the coverage pre-snap. But from all accounts, he's extremely smart on the whiteboard, and teams, I thought, would have loved that, and I thought he would have gone latest second round. Goes at number 86. There's no Malik Willis busting at this point. He can't be a bust. He was taken at number 86. If he doesn't work out, he was a mid to late third round pick. There's nothing riding on this. But the upside is immense. Great pick by Tennessee. Son Haskins, you needed another running back. Love it. Chigakonkwo goes to the perfect spot. Jonnu Smith, Delaney Walker, Chigakonkwo is next. He's your H-back. He's your hybrid fullback tight end. I like this pick for Tennessee a ton. Kyle Phillips, great route runner. Great value at 163. It's really tough not to like this class for Tennessee. It's just, God, when you factor in trading A.J. Brown, just brutal. And the final team of this video, the Washington Commanders, their first draft as the Washington Commanders, get a B. It was a good draft. I don't think amazing, but it was good. Got Jahan Dotson at 16. Maybe the best receiver on the board, depending on how you feel about Treylon Burks, but good player, great hands, huge catch radius for a smaller guy, good deep threat. Jahan Dotson is good. Like the pick at 16. Fedarian Mathis, I thought was underrated. He was a top 5 IDL for me in the class. Big dude that would absolutely flash as like this sick pass rusher at times. And that wasn't all the time. He's more of like a space eater for sure sometimes. But man, I love the player. Sometimes he would just be the most explosive player on the field out of nowhere. And it was just like, who is that? I remember watching Christian Barmore, or trying to, and I'll get into why in a second, because I was trying to, because Christian Barmore was not on the field every play 2 years ago at Alabama. He was taken off. They did not trust him against the run whatsoever, and I'm constantly like, where's Christian Barmore? Where's Christian Barmore? Get into a play from the end zone view. I see this big DT, swim move over the top, and this I think might have been in a college football playoff game, and blow up a stretch, like outside zone run before it could even get going. And this is a year ago I saw this, so I'm really trying to remember here. This was when he was playing in 2020. So keep that in mind. But he made this big play. I really won't forget it in that regard. Big number 48. And I go, who is 48? Look it up. It's Fedarian Mathis. And then he had a good 2021 season as well. I think the player flashes. I think the player is good on a down-to-down basis. I think he's a great Deron Payne replacement for Alabama East. Brian Robinson at number 98, same deal. They were really meeting with a lot of running backs. I think he's a good rotational running back. I really do. Powerful guy, elusive at times as well. Percy Butler is the best gunner in this class, according to Daniel Jeremiah. Didn't see any special teams reps, but that's the word on the street. The Raging Cajun, pretty good player. Sam Howell in round 5 is too good a value to pass up. I call him Baby Baker. A lot of you will think that has a negative connotation. I really mean it in a positive way. I think he has the positive traits of Baker Mayfield. I think he could eventually be a starter on this Washington team. And it probably isn't while Carson Wentz is there, or at least not in year 1. But if there's an injury that happens, Sam Howell is one of the most pro-ready quarterbacks ready to go. Howell, I think, can be quite good. He lost all of his weapons. In my opinion, played behind a brutally bad offensive line. Good thing the Giants drafted 2 of them. But I love the pick in the 5th round. There's no downside. There's no downside at all. And then followed it up with Cole Turner. I guess I like Cole Turner more than other people do. I think he's a good receiving red zone tight end. That's kind of it right now, but that's good value at 149. Chris Paul at 230. I think he could end up being a pretty good guard. Not maybe like real true starter material, but as far as late round guards go, I thought he was going to be a 5th round pick maybe. Ends up going in the 7th. So real good athlete as well. Zerline had him as a priority free agent. I thought he was going to go a little bit earlier than that, but He would know better than me in terms of offensive line evaluation. So lean on that if you want a little bit. But that is my draft grades and analysis on pretty much every player in this draft. Some of them I couldn't speak on just because I was either unfamiliar with them, even though that was pretty rare, or didn't know a ton about them, even though I tried to do as much research as I could post-draft. That's going to do it for this draft. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for subscribing. Take it easy.
Taking it back to the house. Defensive joke. I'm laughing so loud.